Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 Amazon University Esports Masters. Coming in with the playoffs now, I'm of course Takua, joined by the lovely Black Boxer, and we have two best of threes coming at you today.
I have got some really hype matchups. We saw some fantastic matchups yesterday as well. Two best of threes yesterday, two more best of threes today. In order to really round out our final playoffs bracket, see who gets into the top 8 and see who gets knocked out and has to go home.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other side of the bracket from what was seen yesterday, and we have Udog Esports seed from Turkey versus AGH from Poland, having made it out of the LCQs as our first matchup coming through, and then later on we'll have AIX versus BME.
Yeah, some really interesting matchups. We're seeing a lot of the teams. Everybody is going to be one seed who came second in their group, and then one person who has come through the last chance qualifier, bringing themselves in and continuing to fight in this tournament. The winners of this, as we said, will go on to the top 8, and the losers, unfortunately, that's the end of your tournament. So a lot to play for right here.
And there is certainly a lot to play for as far as the prizes are concerned, because there are 14,500 euros at stake here, divided amongst the first to the 8th team in varying chunks, but either way, it is a massive prize for you to be winning.
It's so much money right here. I mean, if you're a little bit of a broke college student, then this is a massive injection of cash. Specifically, first prize, that is a ridiculous amount, but all through. And I mean, that is what these teams are playing for right here. Going on for glory is obviously what you want, but if you're not going to be able to fight for the first prize, just getting into top 8 will secure you that 750 euros per team. So it's still a huge amount of money that is on the line. And so winning this, I mean, obviously it means a lot in the terms of the whole tournament, but just in terms of the actual cash prize, fantastic if you win right now.
Yeah, let's just take a look back to the exact roadmap of this entire tournament. You've seen we've been through the group phase, we've been through its LCQs. Right now we're in the first half of the playoffs bracket. There will of course be some more best of threes coming at you next week, and then the finals in late June.
Yeah, we've got a lot of best of threes to come, as you said, two more today, and then we'll continue on with our quarterfinals, go through all of those games as well. We'll see the schedule as well between all of the teams, and as you can see for today, as you said, we have got that first one, that first two. Yeah, that first two is a slightly different set of teams. It is Turkey versus Poland for our first match of the day. And then Hungary versus Germany. So we've got a lot of exciting matchups coming. So yesterday we saw that first two rounds, which ended up with the French team and with the Turkish team coming through to win. So we'll see if we get a second Turkish team going on into the top 8.
Yeah, certainly interesting bracket should also be coming up on your screen right now. You can see on the other half today with the sides we've just mentioned through the two teams of AGH, Eurodog, and then of course BME and AIX. And these are new matchups. They have not played each other before because they've been out in different areas of the groups or either not met each other because of LCQs. Either way, all four of these teams were in the group stage originally, and in the case of BME and AGH, managed to make it through LCQs.
Yeah, yesterday we saw a rematch between Esports Sigma and KTU. Those had played each other in the same group, but as you said, nobody here has played each other before. Everybody is fighting to go face up against PG Lions, who went undefeated, and KSC... Sorry, not PG Lions. PG Lions didn't go undefeated, but KSC White, who did go undefeated.
Yes.
So the winner today between Uladag Esports and AGH definitely are not out of the woods yet. They have got possibly the toughest road versus the last year's champions.
And we do not have a loser's bracket. So, if you do lose a best of 3, you are out of the tournament. Of course, you might have achieved something if you make it to the quarters, but it is do or die no matter where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. If you lose this, you are out. You are 2 games away from going on to the quarterfinals, getting on that cash prize, but then also 2 games away from losing out, being, having to go home, which at this point, especially, I'd say, for those teams that have come through the last chance qualifier, it's a long road that they've been through, and then to have it stop very suddenly, it just has to feel bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And remember, UEM is that level which people haven't played at before. It's the highest level of esports competition for people at universities. It's a nice time to be here, so you know what? Even if you do go out, at least you can hopefully say that you've enjoyed your time.
Hopefully, especially because a lot of these teams, this really feeds into the entire esports community that you see. We were speaking a lot about KTU, the first Lithuanian representative that we've seen in this tournament ever. And a lot of what you see is teams come here and they might lose or they might do quite well, but you bring that experience back to your region and level up the entire country, get your esports scene even better. And so even the experience of being here is fantastic, but I'm going to say that these teams right now don't care about experience. They are much more interested in getting in on that cash prize and getting towards that finals and winning the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely, they are here to win. Let's have a look at the rosters for today. First off will be Uladag Esports coming in hot from Group A beforehand. Chengabar, Num, Arca, Epave, and Kagame.
This is a pretty exciting roster right here. If we're looking for somewhere to actually follow along and watch, we're thinking that the mid lane is probably where things are going to pop off, especially in context of looking against AGH, whose mid laner is also the main focus.
Yeah, exactly. Something of note with Arca is he's not yet dropped a game on Kale and is really that central element of the team. A little bit more of a slightly different champ pool to what some other players might expect, but particularly the Silas and the Kale, very, very scary if you're up against it.
Is not what you're wanting to let through drafts, but if you don't let that through, then all of a sudden you're having to leave a lot of other high-powered picks around. Someone I think that will be quite interesting to watch is Astro. Plays a lot of the main meta champions, except that the meta has changed. We last saw these teams on patch 12.5, we are now on patch 12.9, and so things have changed. Jinx, Aphelios, and Zeri are no longer the big hypercarry threats that they used to be. Actually, the Jinx has pretty much fallen out of the meta entirely, and instead we saw yesterday a lot of things such as the Lucian, the MF, and a lot of that, a lot of those sort of more high-powered picks, you know, things that do not have to sit back and stale, actually can sit up and get something done a little bit earlier on.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of earlier on there, I mean, there are a lot of other picks that have come through, like the Olaf or the Renekton. However, for the time being, we're going to move on to the Polish roster of AGH, which is comprised of Alchemic, Crazy, Magister, Life, and Tomaj.
This is another fantastic roster right here. If you're looking for somebody to really be watching, Magister is fantastic, but, you know, does sometimes play a few of the more supportive champions, some of the Zillion, some of the Karma. But if you're looking at this roster sort of as a whole, every single part of it works quite well. Life and Tomage were really the main carries that we saw during the Last Chance qualifier stage, but Alchemic also can pull through. Crazy is sort of the linchpin and facilitator of this entire team. If Crazy's doing well, roaming across the map and getting things done, then the rest of the team follows suit and does very well for themselves. But if you manage to pin down Crazy, the rest of the lanes don't necessarily win by themselves.
We could see this in terms of just a statistical point. I mean, Crazy, unlike a lot of teams, your jungler has as much gold share as your ADC. Normally, you see the ADC having a significant amount more than the rest of the teams. You want to be funneling gold into hyper carries. But in the case of AGH, it seems that Crazy plays just as much of a role in terms of pushing the team forward and needing the gold.
Yeah, indeed. The overall roster plays very well together. I'd say this is a well-rounded roster, especially because every single part can do well for themselves, with a little bit of jungle intervention usually, although Alchemic has actually been finding some decent leads by themselves on things like the Ornn, Karma, or Camille. I mean, you don't expect people to get themselves leads on Karma, but actually the Karma top's not been bad pick for them. The Camille specifically, though, has been very interesting, especially in the Last Chance qualifier, which was only played one patch ago, so is, you know, right up to date with what will be expected right now. Has been a fantastic pick for them, played a lot, and so it could be quite interesting to see if that's going to be a priority pick, or if actually we're going to go back to a more top is an island, and the rest of the map actually does things interesting.
And that'll be interesting to see with this matchup, because if we take a look at both teams, we can see, yes, I mean, even with Chengabar and Uladag, fairly strong top laner, is a bruiser only, but has had the GP almost permaban from him. When that is the case, he's kind of just been left there to sit alone, and then we play around Arca and Num specifically being more of a facilitator for the team. Look at AGH, it's kind of the same thing with Crazy and Magister in a sense.
Yeah, it's not particularly different, and I really like matchups like this where actually the playstyle is quite similar, because you really get to get the best feel of who is the better team. If the playstyles are completely separate, say one team really likes split pushing, one team really likes those big team fight compositions, then actually you can just find that one composition is executed better, and it tends to win out on the other all the time. But if they're trying to play the same thing into each other, it really is a test of skill, who is better at this exact composition. And so if they do play the way we're expecting to play, with jungle facilitating and the lane being more the focus, then it'll be really interesting to see who actually comes out on top.
Exactly, and we'll hope to see this in terms of the adaptations throughout the best of three, in terms of, well, how do you react to this? What sort of champs are we going to prioritize? Because there are contested picks, for example, like the Lee Sin, maybe, with the fact that we've just been informed that AGH have started blue, that might get priored.
Quite possibly. The Lee Sin, as you said, is a pretty big pick, but there's also a lot of picks for lots of different players that are really high priority. We've said that the Kayle in the mid lane, not something we see particularly often. Kayle you think of more as a traditional top laner, but actually the Kayle popping up in the mid lane, very well played, as well as the Sejuani in the jungle for Euledog. These are picks that perhaps we've not seen so often. It's also an interesting conversation to have of that we have not seen Euledog Esports in about a month. They have not played since we saw them in the group, and you know, some of the teams, maybe you win through this, you might have had a little bit of a rest. We do not know how much the Turkish esports scene has been playing recently. Presumably there has been a tournament since we did see Yeno Mizla come through and replace Red Dragons as a Turkish representative. But despite that, you know, there's not been massive competitions. Most of the, you know, domestic esports leagues have been winding themselves down. This is off season for a lot of people. This is what they're doing with their off season. A little bit of a professional leagues MSI thing. Everybody else has been sat back and not playing for a while. But these last chance qualifier teams, AGH have come through the last chance qualifier, absolutely destroyed it, didn't drop a single game. And so they've played a lot more recently and on a more recent patch.
And that is really the question, is you've had more experience running through the tournament if you're Poland right now. You've been through groups, you've been through LCQs, now we're at playoffs. You've kind of had the time to adjust to the level that UEM is at, because it is different to domestic leagues. We've seen domestic teams that have dominated their domestic league come into UEM and had a little bit of a shock because it is a different level. Now with Euledog having a not necessarily the easiest group, but in terms of the teams below them in Group A, it wasn't too bad. Maybe the complacency might come through.
Yeah, quite possibly. We've seen teams who actually came through pretty tough groups, but they were not the toughest of groups, all of a sudden falter. Yesterday, you know, we saw Yesterday we ended up seeing Braves from Spain falter against the the third seed Turkish team in Yeno Mizla in what was some crazy games. And so you can begin to falter in that you are overestimating your own ability. Hey, this team had to go through last chance qualifier. Clearly they're not as good as us. We made it through our group. But these are all the second seeds in the groups. These were not the best teams we saw in the group stage. And so they still have a lot to prove to us if they want to go on to win this tournament.
Exactly that, and I mean, if we even want to go there, Poland played more games in groups because Group A was the smaller group pool in this case, so the experience differential is there, but is the skill differential there? That's what we're going to wait to see, especially in terms of the way the two teams interact with similar playstyles and in draft. But at the end of the day, it does end up coming down to how can you execute on your comp versus the enemy team.
Absolutely, that is really what it comes down to, as you said. As much as you can draft yourself the perfect composition, as much as you can say, I'm a better player than you, if you don't turn up and play well on the day, then it counts for absolutely nothing. So we'll be really interested to see who actually pulls themselves forwards. If we are saying who is going to be, you know, step up and say, I am the best carrier on the team, who are you looking at for Euledog?
I mean, it has to be Arca. This man has not dropped a single game on Kayle, and if you were there for the group stage and you were watching the first game the entire tournament between Euledog and the Bobcats, you would remember that his Sylas was a menace for the team to deal with, and they stalled out the game considerably despite having that early deficit. Is that team fighting provided by players like Arca that have allowed Euledog to get those wins?
It has been a fantastic run for them so far. When we're looking over at AGH as we jump into draft right now, it's a little bit more of a spread out sort of power throughout the entirety of the team. As we see the Sylas come off the board instantly, clearly you already just called it out, got a little bit of a prediction on already. Nobody wants to deal with Arca's Sylas, so off the board already.
Exactly. I mean, when you're dealing with teams that have not necessarily played as much recently, taking them off of comfort maybe provides even double the value simply because you haven't played as much of the game, so relying on things that you are used to could be there as we see the Vigar response.
Yeah, the Vigar response makes a lot of sense. Magister quite likes to pick it up. Magister likes to play more of these supportive champions, can play something a little bit more aggressive occasionally. You know, you do have some of the Syndra, the LeBlanc, which is possible, but it is not the big picks. A lot of the time, it's either supportive champions or it is... There goes the gunplank right there. Nobody wants to see that on Kengabar.
Yeah, it just has to happen. It comes to a point where, you know what, just ban away the comfort. It's the right thing to do. It's your first game in a BO3. You can afford to do this. If there are problematic picks later on, you can adapt. As that Zillion, I think you have something to say about for Magister.
Oh yeah, Magister absolutely loves playing these supportive champions, and we've seen the Zillion so much, specifically in Group C and D during the group phase. It was all we saw, and clearly, 4 patches later, it didn't even matter. In the last chance qualifier, it was still getting picked up constantly. It's supportive mids. I know that Vigar isn't technically a supportive mid, but in the hands of Magister, it was being played like one. As an anti-engage, you can't run at us, we will dictate the pace of the fights, and so a lot of focus coming onto Magister right now. But the fact that the Zillion can also be flexed around makes it a very strong pick, so taking it off of the board makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Still waiting on the last ban to come through, but with AGH having that first pick on the blue side, what sort of thing are you expecting them to prioritize for their draft?
If they want to go with what we've been seeing as a lot of the main draft, you would be going with the... Oh, never mind.
Okay.
That is a Taliyah. Taliyah's been buffed up recently, is actually in a nice spot on this patch, but that is not something we've seen in a long time.
Yes, I think the main thing about Taliyah is a little bit weaker early, but later on scales incredibly well and is a bit of a powerhouse in the mid game, especially. Mostly actually seen in mid lane currently because it sort of mitigates the early issues, because especially into a Wukong, if that does come through, I mean, it has come through even in the jungle specifically, if you get invaded by Wukong, you're probably just going to die.
Yeah, the Wukong we've seen a lot as well. It's been flexed between both top and jungle. It gives you a lot of flexibility in your draft. But then the Ezreal, very interesting. It may be indicative of a slightly more roam-heavy support style out of Kagame, because you can just leave the Ezreal behind. This is more the style of AD carry that we've been seeing. The Jinx is gone, the Aphelios and the Zeri also not so much prioritized. Now you've got things that are a lot more aggressive in terms of actually being able to fight into the early game. Now you've got the Ezreals, the Illusions, and the Kallistas. Kallista still up and available, has been a pretty strong pick. Jhin is the only one of the previous round of AD carries that is still stuck around, and we're seeing it right here.
Yeah, Jhin able to provide a little bit more utility and support to his team via Deadly Flourish, and Curtain Call, not too bad in lane, especially in certain matchups. You can have a lot of single target execute damage with that 4th shot, but what that does suggest is that you're going to have more of a carry perhaps in the solo lanes.
Yeah, quite possibly. Or if you pair it up with Desire, all of a sudden that's a big kill threat line down in the bottom lane. So unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to kill the Ezreal, but if you catch the Ezreal out, I mean, that is a lot of lockdown CC available. The Ezreal only has 1 Arcane Shift to try and get away. There is the possibility of kills down in the bottom lane. And then come into fights, you all of a sudden have a lot of AP, so we are expecting some heavy AD, probably in the top lane and in the mid lane. Possibly in the jungle instead, if the Taliyah goes where we expect. Yeah. And that is going to be a Leona locked in to round this out. So we're seeing some power-heavy bot lanes, possibly a lot of fighting going on down there.
Yeah, it looks like Illidog really want to sort of bring the skirmish to this with the Wukong, Ezreal, Leona right now. A lot of lockdown perhaps in the team fight. He's setting up for maybe something for Arca. I would imagine with that red pick, they're probably just going to leave counter pick to mid. I'm sure that we'll see now with AGH banning some of that champ pool out, as it does seem like Illidog have the read on this Taliyah not being in the jungle.
Yeah, it's where we've been seeing the Taliyah more often. In the past, it definitely was a Taliyah in the jungle, but that is no more. The Victor being taken off the board for Arca, so now the mid lane focus is beginning to come down. The mid lane technically could pick up the Zyra if you are AGH. I'm not expecting it. That's not usually where we see the Zyra, especially not with a Jhin. That's a high-powered bot lane, but it is possible. We'll see if this next ban goes towards the jungle again, or if actually we're going to see a top lane ban out, because Alchemic can take over games. Yeah. It's not what we expected during the group phase, but during the last chance qualifier was actually pulling through.
Question, do you expect the Kayle to get banned here, or do you think that AGH have an answer for it?
I believe in AGH that they would be able to pull through an answer. I think they are high-powered enough in the early game. The only thing is they do sometimes falter in closing out games, and in that scenario, you do not want a high-scaling Kayle. Yeah. So it would make sense to ban it out here, but also if they are confident enough that they can close out the game early, their composition right now will do enough damage early game that they can make that work, then you can leave it up and available. And they do.
There it is. The Aurelia instead targeted at both Chengabar and Arca in this case. A nice little double ban in that sense to provide that away. So we'll see an on hover. I do expect, just as a general point for this matchup, we did kind of allude to it earlier with the focus on the mid lane specifically, that it will probably be a top island. But there are cases where maybe Chengabar and Alchemic, as you said, can shine a little bit more, but I'm expecting that to come throughout maybe the second or a potential third game.
Yeah, quite possibly. The only thing is, Alchemic does quite like to take aggressive tank shredding champions into tanks and begin to swing those matchups, so it is possible with this Ornn locked in. However, if you are now leaving the Kayle up and available, and that does come through, a Kayle Ornn is a terrifying late game prospect. Ooh, the Olaf of them. If this
Ah.
goes through, then this means that AGH are full committing to the early game power into mid game spike, and that means that they are pretty much saying if it goes late, we probably won't win.
So, we're on 12.9, which means the Olaf mini rework has come through, meaning that he has A, got Armor Shred on his Q, and B, his W now doesn't amp healing, it gives him the shield based on missing health, and the lifesteal's baked into his passive kit. Very strong champion post rework, and combined with the Volibear, they really are going full all in on this style.
I really like this full all-in on the style of we're going to win early and into the mid-game, and we have to close out, because going late, if this Karthus is locked in, then very much so. Going late, you do not win.
No.
Oh, okay,
No.
this makes more sense. It gives them more teamfight power, still excellent, and I still think that there's points down, so that AGH are going to have to win this game early. If they put themselves into an even, or especially a behind position coming into the middle to late game, they are going to lose.
Yeah, especially if you're behind. Admittedly, it's slightly offset when you consider the Olaf being stylistically very good into the team, with the Ragnarok now being able to perma-extend if you can keep autoing or landing your E. You're denying pretty much CC from the entire enemy team and able to keep running at them. The problem is if you're at too much of a deficit, you probably can't do that. So maybe going even can be okay depending on the game state, but we'll wait and see.
And I really like the aggressiveness to put Alchemic onto the Olaf. The Olaf perfectly good in both the jungle and the top lane at the moment, especially post that little rework, but giving a more supportive and facilitating jungler over to Crazy in the Volibear. That's a high gank setup champion. It's going to work a lot better for that playstyle. And say to Alchemic, hey, you want to go? You can go. You can run through people. This is definitely the playstyle Alchemic likes to pick. Really is locked on tank duty most of the time, but occasionally they're allowed to be unleashed, and when they are, it is a terrifying prospect for the enemy team.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of the jungle, what sort of pathing do you expect Crazy to take on this pick? Because we've talked about how early game centric AGH's composition is, and with that Volibear, what sort of lanes do you think he's going to prioritize?
I think the Volibear is very much unlocked across the whole map, can go into all three lanes. I want to see the pathing go towards the top side. I think if you get Alchemic ahead with this rework, a constant Ragnarok up Olaf running through the enemy team sounds like a good way to win. But it may be safer to go down a little bit more, put a little bit more pressure into the Life and Tomage, because these are very strong bot laners who, when given a lead, can begin to snowball it and win. Tomage especially is a very good aggressive jungler. All of a sudden is on a Zyra who can tread through people, so it makes sense to go either way. The only place I'm not expecting the most focus to be actually is in the mid lane.
Yeah, despite the situation, it seems like both teams have said, you know, it's the first game of the day. It's relatively early for most people. You know what, let's get warmed up a little bit, play it a little bit safer, not necessarily have the most, I don't know, difficult to execute on or dependent champions for your composition. I mean, with the Orianna being a bit of a laid-back control mage for Arca and likewise for Magister, it's just going to be like that.
It's going to go through pretty soon. We'll get into game as soon as we can. A just tiny pause, so we'll be pausing for just a second. Gives us a bit more time to talk about these things. Yeah, as you said, for the side of Uladug, what are you expecting from the pathing then for Num? Because you said Num is really a facilitator of this team. How do you think that this comes to fruition?
Yeah, the main thing is kind of going for his lanes. Generally, we talk about it in the mid jungle because you want to enable Arca, but we have seen it kind of come through bot sometimes. Pave has had some amazing games when he's been enabled. This game, maybe not so much with the Ezreal Leona, definitely has the potential to be there, but I kind of see that as more of a sit back bot side. Wukong does kind of need early resources and some sort of success. He has good ganks with his W now going over walls, but the flexibility is there between mid and bot side. But of course, as we load on the Summoner Rift, always a good reminder that we are powered by Intel and Twitch Student. Make sure to check them out.
Yeah, thank you very much to them for making this fantastic tournament possible. So, as we jump on into game, we'll see where these junglers are actually going to start up for themselves. We take a quick look through all of the runes as well. Nothing particularly interesting or of note right now. Everybody's gone with what is pretty much standard. You can see the Conqueror on Alchemic, so truly trying to run through all of the tanky members. And luckily, there is enough tank and bruiser on the side of Uladog that actually this is a good playstyle.
Yeah, and something that is worth noting, I think we didn't necessarily point out earlier, is that Armor Shred is amazing for life this game. I mean, as a Jhin, you get the 4th shot, 30% Armor Shred on Olaf's Q initially. That's a lot of extra damage.
Absolutely, it should be a lot of good synergy that you can see. Although, if we're talking about synergy, the Wombo combo that always comes out when you see an Ornn and an Orianna, now that could be insane, especially if you then have the long-ranged lockdown CC that comes out of a Leona.
So, interesting level 1 here. Crazy and Alchemic going to be a little bit more aggressive. It will be spotted out. They have the ward here, but they're still going to go for the red buff. Chungabar and Num are waiting in the wings, though.
Do they know that they are there? They've not dragged it into the bush, now they see it.
He gets the double knock-up. That might be what you need. Who got the buff? Num got the buff. That's going to give him the level 2, which means Crazy's going to go down immediately. Num will be responded to by Alchemic. Arca now on the roam, likewise with Magister. Being matched, Chengabar getting very low. This Olaf level 1 is so incredible. Magister just needs one more auto. There it is. Picks up 2 kills for AGH and 1 for Uladog.
That was a lovely little level 1. It was unfortunate that the smite fight went in the direction of Num, but it didn't matter because the early shield, Crazy was about to die, so very close to death. The shield came down from the Call the Storm, then all of a sudden was able to deal a little bit more damage. It turns into 2 kills to 1, and a good start right now. Crazy, although they didn't get the early buff, just get 2 assists, is able to come back onto the map with a little bit more gold. Unfortunately, will be a tad bit behind, but the pressure you've now put onto Num, who has already died, is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the big issue is now Chengabar's not going to have a very nice lane phase. Olaf already will kill Ornn this early on. Now with the extra damage and the level up, it's going to be a lot more difficult for this Ornn to resist there. And maybe we'll see Crazy leverage that with a gank.
Quite possibly, and also it will be interesting to see, I think, was it Magister that ended up picking up that red buff? Or was it... No, it did end up going top lane to Alchemic,
Yeah.
So... going to be a ridiculous amount of damage coming into this top lane. As you said, Chengabar is going to have the worst possible time of it. And putting behind the Wukong already is going to allow you a little bit more freedom in knowing where the Wukong is going to start. The Wukong was always then going to go down towards that blue buff to pick up a few more levels. The only place that we're seeing absolutely no action or involvement right now is the bottom lane, but there's still a big push for AGH and a lot of pressure being laid down onto the Uladog bot lane.
Yeah, Jhin Zara in this case is naturally going to push towards Ezreal Leonis. That's something that we're just going to keep seeing throughout the game. You can control it in circumstances if you want the wave to be coming towards you. But as far as how the champions naturally want to play and interact, push, maybe you get some plates.
AGH might be able to look for this.
Yeah, Crazy is there. Num has the response. Invisibility on the Wukong. Match and Magister going to take a lot of damage. Now the focus coming onto Num, but Crazy is going to be the one taking the brunt of the damage, and Uladog pick one up.
Oh, that is unfortunate. Alchemic is down here, going to be spotted out on a ward as well, though. You can see how much Alchemic wants to get involved. But, oh, some fighting down in the bottom lane. Hang on a second, that is support for AD carry trade. Life is going to come out on top of this by picking up a kill, and instead the kill is going to go on to Kageyam for the side of Uladog. We missed that one, but still, that is a big swing right there.
Exactly, this wave shoving in as well. Life should be able to crash it, and that means that Pave is going to miss a lot of the XP and gold from it. Get a reset as well. Really nice advantage just out of nowhere for the bot side.
Looks like a possibility of a lane gank coming up here. Num is in here, knowing Alchemic's going to want to go forwards.
Oh, misses the knock-up though. I mean, the damage is there. I don't think this is something you necessarily want to do. You kind of just want to guarantee the crash for Chengabar, but if Alchemic plays a little bit too far forward, Num definitely has the angle. He gets that brittle. I mean, doesn't have a flash to proc it, so... Crazy now coming in. Alchemic really wanted it. Goes early, but that's the W from the Olaf. So much healing. The lifesteal from his passive. He's still alive. Num manages to finish it off, but the Wukong now so low. The Volibear a few autos away from killing. And there it is. The power of the new Olaf.
The power of the new Olaf and the power of the Volibear. So much healing, constantly able to make these fights work. Alchemic and Crazy, you do not see them work together too often. Usually Crazy is off towards the bottom side of the map, but when they do team up, fantastic synergy between the players themselves and between these two champions. I can see this becoming a roaming death squad. Wherever the Olaf and Volibear want to go, death and destruction will follow, and it's so hard to kill them before you get any anti-heal.
It's really interesting. Both teams going head-to-head right now, really matching each other in their plays, and I'm very aware of where Crazy's pathing. Homage here, maybe just making sure that Magister can get the shove in, but this is the kind of level that we're expecting from both teams. Very even right now, and I'm excited to see how this will develop later on in this game and in the best of 3.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of one-sided stomps, let's say, yesterday. I mean, one specifically, it was a slight bit of destruction, and so today, seeing these two teams sitting very even with each other, this could be a fight as well.
Crazy wants it, but I'm not sure if you do. Support is able to come through. Tomage now in position. Kagame and Num just going to retreat.
A lot of aggression right here. You could see most members of both teams around. The AD carries have not made their way up yet. Will do soon. This is an Ocean Drake to fight over. Will be impactful if able to pick up. I like Crazy's decision making there. Didn't know which one was the correct version of Num, so just went for the support instead.
Oh, just about flashed away from that Zenith Blade. Team's still posturing.
You can see the amount of poke though. It's very difficult if you are Euladog to actually step up and be able to get involved.
Yeah, the Zyra providing so much zoning, and later on with the potential of Talia being able to flip you into their team is definitely scary. It's going to be dependent on who gets the setup first. This time it was AGH, and they secure that Ocean Drake.
It was a nice little play out of AGH. They're going to manage to pick up that Ocean Drake, and this means that they are beginning to Drake stack. Will be able to continue snowballing that into the late game as Alchemix going for a walkabout in the enemy jungle. Chenga bars come down to try to find them. Alchemix surrounded by lots of people.
He has the Ragnarok. He should be safe. He can always pop that for the move speed. Yeah.
Actually, that's a bit of a waste for Arca. Now does not have that ultimate right now, and possibly could be in a bit of a bad spot. Not the worst matchup to do it into. The Talia does not have a true aggressive ultimate.
Okay, Kagame wants it. The damage isn't quite there. Pave not able to follow up immediately, but the heal and the arcane shift forward keeps Kagame alive for long enough. That should be life picked up. It will be returned on the support. Wait, if Pave is taking so much damage from minions, he's not going to get it. Life, 1 HP, manages to survive.
Oh, life only just keeping his. Oh my god, you could see the ability of Crazy to just leap in there, getting involved. This is the sort of jungler that is ideal for Crazy, getting across the entire map, constantly involved with fights. It looked like it was going quite well for AGH. All of a sudden goes wrong in that Tomage gets burst down, but Life having enough damage already as a gank in the top lane.
Invis call the Forge God Ragnarok response, and you can just see how annoying this ultimate is going to be for Udadog.
Tomage is up here actually on a big roam looking to pick themselves up the Rift Herald. Now, this is a point I am going to emphasize throughout all games today. During the group phase, I'm not sure how it was for you in Group A and B, but in Group C and D, almost everybody used the Herald terribly. They used it at about 14.5 minutes rather than at any time that would be useful, and when they had opportunities that they could have used it pre-14 minutes. So, we're watching these teams to see if they are actually going to use the Rift Herald well, otherwise it's almost a waste of time to pick it up.
Yeah, you're just donating XP and gold over in the end of the day, potentially, especially if you take a bad fight around it and you get a Herald. That makes it even worse. In this case, I think Crazy definitely has the opportunity. We'll see whether he executes on that as a Pave, just crashing this wave down.
Life having to play very respectfully here. The possibility of a dive is definitely there, and so losing a lot of farm right here. But finally, Tomage and Crazy gonna make their way up. All of a sudden, you know, Kageyama and Ipave gonna know that they have to back off. It just made sense to play safe right there. We'll see if this fight actually goes through, but if it does not, it's a really interesting point where if you go too far forwards as an AD carry in order to get the farm because you don't want to miss it and you die, you'll lose the farm anyway, and you've given over a kill. So fight here.
Oh, there it is. Life forced to flash away, but that means that Tomage is stuck in the rest of it. Solar Flare lands as well, and that should mean Life will get picked up. The dive gonna happen, a Pave flashing forward to get it. Kagame will go down as a sacrifice, but it's still 2 kills for Uladog.
It was a nice little fight right here. Will Crazy and Magister be able to turn it back though?
Weaver's Wall, that's a Pave, ignited down, shut down for Magister. None forced back, but that's the clone, so he gets away.
Just about using the clone in time. You can see the roaming combo of Magister and Crazy here. Crazy teaming up with all of the solo lanes to get things done wherever he is needed. A lovely little fight right here. And we'll see if Crazy is able to keep this pace up, because, as we said during the draft phase, AGH, the emphasis is on them to get things done in the early game. You can see it in the way that Crazy is pathing, trying to constantly get involved.
Runs for mid, why not?
Yeah. Just a little bit of a landed bit of CC onto Arca. Going for a steal onto these chickens, could possibly then pop the Rift Herald behind the turret. manage to guarantee those plates.
I'm just probably going to move around. I mean, your bonus resetting, you don't necessarily have priority. Definitely was an option to do that, but fortunately, I mean, you kind of had some information that Urdark were kind of coming back into the lane, so not so safest. Do your clear, come back around. There's still another window for it. Of course, Drake is also spawning in a minute, so what is an alternative that might be worth doing is dropping it in exactly the same position, but just slightly later.
You can see that the lane swap has come through. AGH, Life, and Tomage are down here, you know, looking for Kageyam and Ipe, but Magister has been given this bot lane focus for a little bit, just because it's a bit safer with that pushback for the Talia to sit down in the bottom lane, rather than the very immobile and squishy form of the Jhin.
Alright, yeah, much of us more of a stalemate. Gold lead, relatively even, is in favour of ADH at this point in the game. And of course they do have that one Drake, so it is ahead at 12. Alchemic going to keep scaling up. Stride Breaker complete. Not necessarily what we always see. It has generally been the Gold Drinker, but the Stride Breaker able to give you a little bit more of a latch down power, keep that Ragnarok up in team fights.
Yeah, that's the trade-off you're going for. Less healing, but I mean, there's still quite a lot inbuilt into the Olaf kit already. But instead, you'll constantly be able to get your hits off, always be able to land those abilities, and that means that you're going to keep that Ragnarok open for longer and longer, which is the power of this mini rework that has gone through. Possible dive here. Crazy does have the ultimate.
Bringer available, you could instead alt drop Herald, funnel more gold into Alchemic here, force Chungabar back. You can't really do much versus this too, and that's exactly what AGH are planning to do.
It's a trade for the Drake picked up by Uladag, but this is worthwhile. Going to manage to force a lot of CS off of this Ornn and be able to pop first tower already at just 12.5 minutes into the game. It's a nice play. Going to keep going.
Live is here. That Stormbringer locking down the turrets. Chungabar going to jump over the wall, but that might mean that your tier 2 gets given up, and that's even more gold into the pockets of this Olaf and Volibear.
That's a ridiculously early tier 2 gone down already. It's going to draw a lot of pressure towards the top lane. If you want to just leave Alchemic in the top lane to split push, perfectly valid strategy with an Olaf until you bring them down for the fights. Teleport will unleash in 50 seconds time. And so this is huge tower pressure gone down already. And you can see that AGH like to play a clean style. They want to play through each lane as they see fit, rather than going through whichever lane has the player that they think is the best.
Crazy, this might be a bit overzealous here. 3 members in the jungle to be able to match on the enemy team. Alchemic going to go down, too much damage. Chungabar picks that one up now onto Magister and Crazy. Do they have the chase? No, they don't.
They do not. They're going to transition it into some more damage onto the turret plating. This is a slightly ridiculous amount of turret plating that has gone down over to AGH, but as you said, way too... Oh!
Wait, actually might be a kill into Arc of the shielding. Might be enough to prevent the ignite, but Crazy is here. Flash forward, flash response. Now Crazy might actually be in some trouble. Numb in the jungle. Stormbringer shield. That's not enough. That's a shutdown.
That's a lovely shutdown. Overzealous out of Crazy, tried to go way too far forwards. Ends up giving over that shutdown onto Numb. Possibly needed to just stand and fight there. Was trying to run away. Was on about to equal health with Numb and had landed the shield. Instead chooses to run and gets chased down by that Wukong.
And not something you can necessarily do. A massive injection for Udog. Nevertheless, it's still a lead for AGH right now. Of course, the Drake trade does mean that this soul is going to be a bit stunted at this point. But if you are AGH, I'm not sure if you're too concerned, because as long as you're building up a gold lead onto the important carries of your team, which they currently are, look at Magister, look at Alchemic, and I think stylistically you might be fine into Udog's scale.
Should be able to be. It is a 3k gold lead for AGH right now. They've taken 2 turrets at the top lane. The mid lane tower is hurt, but the bot lane tower for AGH is also on its way down, unfortunately. So AGH going to have to be careful to stem the bleeding in the bottom lane and to not get overzealous with Alchemic and Crazy, who are strong but need to find those correct fights. Alchemic was trying to fight there without the Ragnarok up and available, so just got caught with CC and is actually a very squishy champion.
Yeah, Olaf, if you're not actually allowed to keep hitting, you don't get the lifesteal, and the current way he's building is built a lot of AD. Yes, you get a little bit of HP there, but without the Gold Drink with the Stride Breaker, you're a lot squishy.
Yeah, deciding to go for this build path should be able to make it work if we know Alchemic, but it is different, it is interesting, a little bit of a risk that has been made right here. you take a look over at the side of Euladog, though, everything is okay for them at this point. Their jungler that needed to get ahead early is ahead, and everybody else that is just looking to scale up into the late game is having an okay time of it as well, as a big fight might be coming through in the bot lane.
Use wall to match, that's going to prevent Num from going on to life. Instead, Zyra is going to be the target, slain by the Wukong now. Chemic coming in for the dive, just going to have to Ragnarok away. Not enough health to stay alive, but the Curtain Call support Cyclone to match it, which means Alchemic's going to go down. Double kill for Num. For the Forge God now responds 2 flashes away from AGH. Crazy now coming to pick it up. Num went a little bit too far forward, and it just keeps getting matched by both teams.
Everybody is always at every single fight. Life is playing very aggressively right here, hugging the wall. Always going to get caught.
So that shit. Wait, the heal actually not enough damage. Life still alive and misses the Mystic Shot, and Kagama's rooted down. The heal not enough to keep them alive from Crazy, and just that slight mechanical error from Uladar gets punished.
A lovely little play out of Life. I'm going to say it was a bit int, but ends up working out. Went a little bit too far forwards, does get caught out, but unfortunately Kagame's flash into E did not end up resulting in the kill. Overall, it was a pretty even trade. Still a 3k gold lead for AGH. A bit of fighting that doesn't actually result in too much, other than the fact that the Drake is up in 30 seconds. Everyone will be alive for that, but now AGH have the priority to get all of their vision down and sweep out enemy vision.
Alright, 17 seconds on the Infernal. If you start getting these stacking for either team, it's massive for your team, because on Uladog, you want the scaling. On AGH, more damage for your carries means that you should be able to kill and pick off the key members of Uladog to be able to secure a fight victory. So this Drake is all important for both teams. Setting up right now, AGH have the advantage and should actually just be able to get it.
This is a pretty impactful Drake to be picking up. The first of the Infernal Drakes means that you are already on the way to Drake stacking as a fight breaks out.
Uladog currently on the run. Alchemic really wants it, dashing in with the Ragnarok. Crazy stunned up, but he's gonna live for the time being. Volibear having enough health. Chengabar now flashing away, but it's not enough. Why do you flash there? There is no chance you ever live.
Nope, that is a wasted flash, and the second Rift Tower is going to be popped as well. Going to be able to definitely take out this first turret, possibly even transition it into a second one as a root lands.
Lovely flourish from Life, gonna secure the death of the pave there. Another turret crash. I think you might actually be able to get in him in this situation if you want it.
This will be a third crash of the Rift Herald, where certainly Num is up and available to try to fight into this, but still, that is another turret down. All of a sudden, it's 5 turrets to 1. Rifty lands their charge onto the Herald as well, and Num now needs to be careful.
He really wants a Cyclone in. So much damage from this Wukong. Going to take out Life as well. The help of Arca now. The return from Magister and Crazy. Going to pick one up. Can they pick anything more? Arca getting incredibly low. Leandri's burn not quite enough. Living on 1 HP. This means Crazy now on the back foot. Flashing over the wall. Not quite enough from Uladog, but at least they get something.
There is a reason, unfortunately, that Talia's play rate is not massively high. It is because Talia doesn't feel good. It doesn't look like the Talia is doing that much damage, but actually, throwing those rocks during the entire fight, constantly pushing people around as well, is being so impactful. That is the main backbone of the damage. Unfortunately, when you have a Jhin, you do not get long, sustained damage, but constantly moving to unworked ground, Magister is dealing so much damage throughout all of these fights that is allowing the big bursty carries of Crazy and Alchemic and Life to actually land all of their damage and take people out.
Speaking about burst, it's actually worth noting that we kind of saw it from Num, despite his build path, of course. The fact that Life and Thomas just kind of died as soon as the Wukong went in with very little help from Arca in that situation just goes to show that if AGH, perhaps Magister mispositions in one fight, they get the pick, but it could definitely end up swinging to the other side, especially with those objective bounties now up.
We were thinking, hey, Num has gone a little bit too deep here, went flying in amongst 4 members, but actually ends up doing very well for themselves. The only point to temper that with, though, is that Num had gone back to base, had managed to pick up a few more items, and all of the members of the side of AGH had gone, you know, they'd been fighting for a long time, were not in the best spot, but still, Baron up and available, spawned just recently, and so everybody beginning to posture around it. AGH need this to be able to crack through into the final set of inhibitors and towers, whereas if you are Euladog, giving this over may spell disaster.
So we've all seen how Baron flips can go, and sometimes it can spell disaster for the team that starts it. Definitely depends on positioning. Everything could go right or wrong in this moment. Both teams still, as you say, posturing. Top lane is in the bot side with both TPs available to be able to join the fray.
Everybody is poised and ready.
He's looking for Arca, doesn't have flash. That's just a kill on a killing spree right now. Crazy maybe looking for more. The follow-up from the team isn't quite there, but that might give them a chance to start up the Baron.
That's so much team fighting power just gone all of a sudden. You now have to worry about the fact that you do not have that shockwave. You don't have the beginning of that wombo combo. So everybody on AGH goes into the Baron. There are still 4 members up and available for Uladog. You know, they can fight into this if they want to, but it looks like... Oh,
there they go. Pick onto Tomage, but those Strangle Vines are just going to do too much. Curtain Call now opened up. Uladog has to run away. Baron on 5,000. Nump can go for a steal over the wall if he wants to. Decides against it, and this means that AGH will secure the purple wall.
That was a lovely little bit of fighting there. It looked like possibly a pick had been found for Uladog. In the end, it doesn't actually end up going through. It was well played out of all the members of AGH. Going forwards when they needed to, dropping back when they needed to. Drake spawning in 50 seconds as well. So what can they get done until they have to set up for this Drake, try to get it in order to be able to get themselves the 3rd Drake, that soul point. Then at that point, all of a sudden, if you are Uladog, you have to fight in for either this Drake or the next one. You are on a timer all of a sudden. If you don't manage to find some steals or good setups, fights to be able to get these Drakes, once you give over both Barons and the Infernal Drake soul, it's going to be a horrible time trying to fight into these high damage members.
Alright, well, Uladog really do need to start winning one of these team fights. 11,000 gold down. We do have the scaling in the bank, but Ornn is only level 12 right now, and Arca's just gonna go down in the side lane!
This is disaster right here for AGH. We said that Arca was the main carry we were expecting to do well, but unfortunately, anywhere Arca goes, Alchemic wants to get in on this fight, manages to take them out. Now this is 30 seconds without your high-powered mid laner, so this is going to be a very easy Drake pickup for AGH. What can the return be? There has to be a return out of Uladog.
Right now looking for Alchemic on the side, but he's just too well positioned at this point. Tomage right now with the rest of it. The jungle just isn't safe for them to do anything with, and they don't have the members.
That was a nice try on the steal out of Epave. Unfortunately, does not quite work out. It landed at the exact right time. Now you have sent Crazy into the bottom lane to try to bring up this wave. They are playing a lovely style of not quite 1-3-1 because constantly Tomage is roaming between the top and the mid lane, allowing everybody to feel safe. Alchemic are going to have to run a little bit, but should be safe here.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're Olaf here, you can just say, I'm going to stall with the wave, keep it Baron buffed up. If they try to engage with me, I just rag the rock out of there, and my team gets value on the rest of that. So, I'm Alchemic, I'm very happy right now. That's going to be another inhib turret going down. I think Uladog are going to take the fight. There's the Cyclone on to Crazy, immediately killed, unstoppable, but does get stopped. Curtain Call now in response as none. The trade of the junglers did happen. Arca goes down to a sniper shot life, not missing at all. Kagame with the engage, but it's only a Pave now with the damage. Double kill for the Jhin. Tomage unable to do anything. Alchemic TPing in, and I think it's all AGH from here on out. They just end the game.
Yeah, this is going to be the end of the game for AGH. It was lovely. It was very clean the whole way through. A couple fights where they lost out on members overstayed, but in the end, it is going to go the way of AGH. They're going to take the first victory over Uladog.
And this might just be those nerves, those rusty fingers coming out from Uladog, not having played since the group stage, which was some time ago, versus the experience of AGH. A well-deserved start to the best of 3.
Yeah, they laid down the gauntlet with that Olaf top Volibear in the jungle, and they decided to execute on their early game composition from the very start. Went in on that roam into the jungle, and from there continued to snowball things. There were 1 or 2 moments where people got over-aggressive, but they were playing a composition that had to win early, and win early they did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that early invade coming through, recognizing that, you know what, we have Volibear and Olaf. Our level 1 is amazing. Let's just go for it. They went for it, and it ended up working out really well.
It was a lovely fight the whole way through. I think that Uladog showed a few sparks of success, but unfortunately, once they'd been put off-kilter from that early fight, there was a little bit of catch-up game playing, and although they only needed to stay within touching distance for their comp to come online later on, it just got out of their control quite quickly. They were losing out on both Drakes, and then also onto the Rift Heralds, and things in terms of objectives just spiraled. I think the main turning point may well have been that Rift Herald in the top lane, where it got
Yeah.
multiple towers more than was expected, and from that point on, the map was so tilted in one side that it was very difficult to find anything elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly that. Maybe it was worth trying to bring some members to try and match that play in the top side rather than trying to do it elsewhere, because I think you get too much value out of it. But we'll see as it develops. It was a very safe game for Uladog, and I believe we have some replays to look over it.
Yeah, we'll come into some replays between these two teams. We will probably start, from this early fight in the jungle. It looks like it's going pretty badly for AGH because the buff does end up going to Numb, but you see the shield comes through just at the right second in order to keep Crazy alive long enough to allow Magister to get in from the side. Chengamar going to flash over the wall, does end up getting taken out here as well, and because of this, you're already seeing Alchemic with a red buff, and then your Magister has a buff as well. Alchemic, it looks like it's going to go badly for him as well, but Crazy in the backline, you can see this duo constantly roaming around the map and finding good things for themselves.
You can just really see the power of that armor shred, particularly in this fight and the one beforehand, where you're just providing so much extra damage for the Volibear, and the survivability coming in from the shield as well. Just a very nice synergy pick that was well executed afterwards.
Yeah, it was lovely the whole way through. You can see here, unfortunately, Numb was still doing well, able to get some kills, doing a lot of damage, but Crazy, just very difficult to actually deal with. Finally does get taken out here. Oh no, does not, flashes over the wall here, I think, and survives.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that was a nice little play there. But you can see how the Volibear constantly surviving. If you are the side of Uladog, you've got to ban some things out, change some stuff up, but what do you get rid of? Because all the members worked very well together.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is that you can stylistically play versus Olaf. I mean, if you want to draft in a way that's more poke-orientated, Olaf has an incredibly hard time into those compositions. Maybe ban out the Volibear, prevent that early sort of pressure from coming up, and then maybe you have room for that. However, we haven't really seen Uladog play that sort of style, so who knows?
They like to play through their mid lane, but unfortunately the mid lane matchup was so skewed because Magister got that early kill and also piloted an unusual pick in the Talia. Not to perfection, but very close to it. It was a nice game out of them the whole way through. Well played. And so it is quite difficult to say what actually will be changed up. I do believe in Uladog they'll be able to pull through and find at least more success in game 2. Things were skewed very quickly because of the early game, go into the jungle, but possibly in the next game a slightly different style could produce different results.
Exactly that. And we'll be back shortly for that game, but in the meantime, you might as well check out Twitch Studio and Intel, who are powering this lovely stream, and we will see you for game 2 after a little break. Hello again, we're back with the 2022 Amazon University Esports Masters. It's the playoffs between Uladog and AGH, the Turkish and Polish seeds respectively, on the other half of the playoffs bracket. This is of course Takua joined by Black Boxer, and we're in game 2.
Yeah, already on to game 2 after what was a very nice win out of AGH. All in all, it was clean and collected. Although there were a lot of big explosive fights, they knew what they were trying to do. They played the top lane first, got a couple towers off of a Rift Herald push, and then snowballed that into the rest of the game. The only thing about this is it came a lot off of a level 1 invade to go and try to fight for the red buff. The red buff didn't actually end up going over to AGH at the beginning, but the multiple kills did. The red buff ended up on Alchemic in the top lane, and that kind of skewed things. So coming into this game 2, it will be interesting to see whether or not the early level fight was actually more impactful than the rest of it, or if actually Uladog were just being outclassed in general.
Yeah, and I think one of the adaptations that we would both like to see for Uladog in particular is that, well, maybe you just ban out some of this early priority, because in the case of the Wukong, you kind of need a little bit more early resources, and if someone's picking a Volibear and then the Olaf in this case and doing the invade, you're not going to have that early power, and you kind of just fall flat, especially when you're playing scaling comp. So maybe preventing some of that from happening might enable your team a bit more.
Yeah, quite possibly. As you said, maybe banning out the volley is the way forwards. If you take a look at the way Crazy likes to play, that early priority, that early aggression is everything to them. They are not necessarily the player that is going to pick up something ridiculous and win by themselves. They do sometimes pick up the Kindred, which is a little bit supportive anyway with that Lamb's Respite, or the Nidalee, which is quite aggressive. But for the most part, it is more of those sort of laid back champions. And so the Volibear is ideal for their playstyle. It would be a prudent ban, I think, if you are the side of Uladog. Whereas for Euler I don't think they necessarily have to rechange everything that they did. The
Yeah.
Wukong maybe was not the ideal pick because it didn't have enough early priority, but should that early level 1 have gone well for them, all of a sudden the Wukong is on their way to that first, second item, and then maybe it goes better.
All we did see was that Num was really proactive on the map. Every single place that Crazy was going, Num was able to match. The problem was he wasn't actually able to match because the Volibear was that much better early on. So, as we've seen with Num in the group stage, he played a lot with Lee Sin. Now, we did talk about this a little bit, but maybe that playmaking might help to offset the problems that we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think also if you're looking at what Euler needs to change, why are we not seeing midline priority? You said that it was the main thing we saw during the group phase, and also the main thing that we saw from this team sort of out of their domestic league as well. They like to play around Arca. Arca is the main carry. And yet, Orianna Judy? I mean, obviously hitting that big shockwave in a team fight is what wins games, certainly. But during the early stages of the game, where all of a sudden you were beginning to lose, Arca was sort of just left out to dry, not able to get involved, and then later on was constantly being hunted by Alchemic.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that Uldok did end up taking this approach in draft because AGH really respected Arca during the ban phase immediately, as well as Chengobar, of course. But maybe it is the case where you just want to enable your solo laners more with playing more like you did in groups than what we see here, and that might just be the experience thing. You've warmed up game 1, maybe it's time to show your true colors.
Yeah, actually come through and find the way you want to play this game. Because, as we were saying previously, AGH have come through this last chance qualifier. They were warmed up, raring to go ready, and they had played on this more recent patch. We will once again reiterate that the group stage was played on 12.5. We are now on 12.9, and all of the last chance qualifier was played on 12.8.
There's 4 patches.
Yeah.
That's a long
patches.
time.
It's a ridiculous amount of time, especially because although the last chance qualifier was not on this patch, it was only one patch previously. Things had not changed that much. A lot of the power that we did see out of Euler was Astro playing these very meta champions, but the meta champions that were meta 4 patches ago are completely gone. It is entirely different at this point.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, Pave's champ pool was completely different because of the sort of times. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, the ADC meta's changed up a lot. So certainly the adaptations are about to come through for Uldog. We'll see exactly where that goes, and we're hoping it'll probably be a little bit more jungle orientated against AGH. But do you think AGH should be making any adaptations coming into game 2?
They could well do. They do not tend to play through Alchemic. Alchemic has been ramping up throughout this entire tournament and the last chance qualifier, beginning to step into more of a carry role. But if they wanted to go back to what they used to do with more focus towards the mid and bot lane, that is definitely possible and is not necessarily a bad idea, considering you could be pretty confident in saying that Chengobar will play more of that sort of sit back, laid back carry. You can just match in lane and then get into your team fight where Alchemic can shine. But also, you're in a advantageous position. You are 1-0 up. You are one match away from moving on to the top 8, getting in on that prize pool, and knocking out the Turkish representative. So, you do not have to change anything. You can just sit back and say, hey, what we did work, what can you bring to the table?
Exactly that, and we'll see it in the draft, which is just about to come up. Ban phase all ready and set, and immediately Zena comes out from Umadog, which is absolutely not what I would have expected.
No, it is a big pick, though, for Life and Tomage. Both of them like to play it. If you're expecting one of them to play it or the other, you never really can. Tomage likes it more, I'd say, than Life, but it's a great flex pick. Also, more focus onto Magister. Nobody wants to play up against Magister's Vigor. Makes a lot of sense. Very good at anti-engage, and what we saw previously, Uladog actually did like to play some of that engage style. The Silas also off the board, you said that was fantastic for Arca. It might be a situation where Arca's getting a lot of their players, a lot of their champions banned out, and that's why we're not seeing them play so aggressive as we expected.
Yeah, maybe it is the case. The Kel is, of course, always there, but the problem is with that pick. I mean, if that was picked last game, I think it even would have been a worse situation because you have to spend so long to get to level 16 to actually be a tangible threat. But yeah, maybe it is the case that Arca's champ pool is getting hampered a bit, and maybe you just got to pick it early.
Indeed, and there we go, the Talia off the board. Clearly that was the decision of, hey, this was the problem, and I can't disagree. It's not something you're used to playing against, and it was laying down such consistent and constant damage that it made it very difficult for anybody on Euler to ever get into a fight healthy. If you're constantly joining a fight with only 80% of your HP, all of a sudden you're not going to have a good time in that fight.
Another thing that I think we brushed over slightly, I mean, there is a Graves lock, of course, coming in from Udog, which is an interesting pick, probably going over to none, but was that Kagame during groups, in 4 out of 5 of Udog's wins, he was on Nautilus. So the fact that this Nautilus is being permanently banned away from Kagame is definitely putting the support out of his comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, the Leona is, I guess, in the sense of a Kagame play, a little bit of a Nautilus light, and it clearly wasn't played to perfection. It was not played as well as the Nautilus does end up being played by Kagame, and so interesting that that's been put on the ban table. A good decision out of AGH, we'd expect. Now we're going to see both of the junglers picked up. First of all, we expect probably the Wukong into the jungle. Could also be picked up by Alchemic. Technically, the Graves could also go top or into mid lane. There we go. This is what I was excited for. This will be in the hands of Magister almost certainly. Magister loves to play it, plays a fantastic mid lane where actually is not particularly far forwards, you know, is not going to be ahead in CS, not going to be ahead in kills, but in terms of just pure map pressure and helping everybody else on the team do well, this is a fantastic pick. But that's the one you're excited for.
You had to do it. I mean, it ends up coming down to, as we said, you know, if your champ pool's getting pinched and this is one of your best champions, sometimes you just have to go for it. This is now do or die. If you lose this game, it's over. So going for the kill here, it's a comfort pick. You haven't yet lost the game on it. Let's see if you can keep it that way.
And I like it as a response to the Zilean. Both of these are now going to allow a champion who may be about to die to keep alive with both the KO ultimate and with the Zilean ultimate, as well as the Leona being locked in for Kagame. This is a little bit more of an early aggression set of champions to enable them to not be far enough behind that all of a sudden the KO will, you know, not get to the power spikes. You have to be in a nice spot, but there we go. It is going to be the Olaf relocked in.
No.
Alchemic will most likely pick that one up, so it will be Olaf in the top lane and Wukong into the jungle, I'm expecting. So, high-powered top lane versus what is going to be a high-powered jungle and support duo with the intentions of getting your mid lane to scale.
I will say, this time the Olaf has been paired with a Zilean, which means he's just going to be running at you at Mark 20 with an ult to Rhythm when he gets low.
Yeah.
So Alchemic very much enabled right now. We'll see if they end up drafting anything more on the side of AGH to be able to split that further. Not sure if they absolutely need to, but that is the Zyra even coming through for Uludog.
Yeah, and the Zyra being banned out means that clearly, you know, Uludog does not want to play against the exact same composition, and while it would be slightly different because the Taliyah was gone, actually the Zilean can do the same sort of thing with the bombs, poking people out, beginning to stun them up, lock them down early enough in the fight, and comes with a utility ultimate rather than a big damage threat. It's a really nice draft that they've managed to adapt for themselves, as the Kaiser comes off the board as well, so a little bit more focus going on to Epave.
Alright, Uludog still one more to respond. I imagine this will get targeted over at the bot side, and that is going to be a Karthus. Instead, sometimes we have seen Karthus in the bottom side in ADC and even in support. Definitely flexible. Doesn't want to have that big sort of damage threat coming in whilst Magister and Alchemic are running down the team, as AGH have another pick.
Yeah, AGH probably going to go for their support right here, give a little bit of counter over perhaps. Oh no, actually going to go for the Twitch. This is a pickup that Life really likes to play. It's pretty aggressive, will allow a lot of damage to go down. It's not quite the Jhin in terms of safety, but I guess if you go too far forwards, you will always have that Zilean ultimate to bring you back up. See what Uludog want to do for the final things. Need to round out their draft with a top laner and then with an AD carry. That's aggressive.
Okay, I mean, Vayne right now into, I mean, Wukong, Olaf do have the health bars, percent damage is not bad, but again, it's another scaling champion. We're seeing the return to scaling for Uludog. The question is, can you avoid the early pressure? Yes, there was the level 1. That I don't think is going to come through, but if Gwen comes through, it's just more scaling for the team.
Yep. You are very much relying on... Oh boy, alrighty, okay. There we go. I like that though. You needed something more aggressive in the early game, and I don't think you get more aggressive in the early game than a Darius. Especially now, Darius plus Graves is a very strong combo, will be able to actually exert a lot of pressure towards the top lane, maybe shut down Alchemic. We'll see what the final support pickup is, unless it's going to be a mid laner and the Zilean will go into the bot lane. This is perfect. This is an ideal pick. Yeah. That is fantastic. Everything that Renato wants to do is stop people who are running straight at you, and well, with a Vayne, with a Darius, and with the Graves, people are going to be running at you.
Yeah, and one other thing that is kind of worth noting is later on, if you get the angle to do it, Kael's going to do a lot of damage with her autos. At level 16, I mean, it's just so much, and if you're going to put the Renata through, you come over, take over the Kael, probably just going to kill the rest of your team instead.
Yeah, the Kale will become a bit of a threat to both teams, actually, with that Renata. I really like it, and Tomage is fantastic on this. This is one of Tomage's, premier picks, actually. So, all in all, the composition for AGH, pretty similar, actually. They're going to look for some early game threat with Alchemic and Crazy. Magic are going to be supporting, and Life and Tomage just trying not to die. Team fight's going to be very good. The more interesting composition, perhaps, though, is Euladog, who have got very early aggressive picks, and very late scaling picks as well.
And in a sense, this is sort of the response that we kind of wanted, with the fact that you're matching the scaling with the aggression, as you say, to make sure that your scaling doesn't get forsaken in the rest of the game, because last game it very much did, because AGH just had the early advantage.
And see, it makes a lot of sense. If you go for a full scaling composition, you are putting a lot of faith in both yourself to not die, and a lot of, I'd say, disrespect, honestly, on your enemy team to say, hey, y'all are not going to be able to punish us. And we've seen from AGH, they will punish you. And so, if they are going to be able to punish you, you might as well draft yourself something early to get yourself through that point. Darius definitely falls off. Darius is an early game champion, but he's always useful. He will always be able to be quite tanky in the late game, healing a lot, and a pretty good front line, actually, for the Kael, and so it's a good pick to get them through the early game to the point where the Kael can then pick up and then support this Kael into the late game.
Yeah, certainly solid true damage nuke. You can always put on the Divine Judgment onto Darius as he goes in for a little bit of invulnerability. We'll see how that all develops in terms of the game, because if AGH gets an early lead like they did last game, I'm not entirely sure how well Udog are going to handle that.
Yeah, we'll be into the game in just a couple of seconds as well, and we'll see how this actually shakes out. I'm expecting the same sort of thing out of Crazy and Alchemic, a roaming death squad working together and bringing Magister in when they need a little bit of extra support. I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of aggression down into the bottom lane. It could happen, but ganking onto a Twitch is not necessarily what you are wanting to do. The Twitch is more likely to actually roam up and join into a fight in the jungle, possibly into the Drake pit as well. That's more what I'm expecting from this team. From you, Ladag, what are you expecting?
I mean, the hope is that Arca actually gets a chance to shine with the Kael, that Apave actually gets a chance to shine. Because Apave really did have some good performances when he was enabled, and the Vayne is a champion which you could really demonstrate your skill on. But the problem is, you kind of have to get to the point where you can actually do that, which is a few items down the line. So the hope is Num and Chengobar can stall out the game, as they've done very well in the past during groups. This is a big point of Udog, is just stalling out games. But let's see if it can actually do it.
If they will be able to do it, it should be a fantastic game. Send us to a game 3. Reiterate the stakes one more time. This is do or die right now. If you're Euladog and you lose here, you are done with your tournament. You got through groups, you sat out for a month, and then you got 2-0'd and went home. That does not feel good. If you are the side of AGH, you're 1-0 up, you win here, you go on to the top 8, you're back to fighting a lot of the teams you got knocked out from groups with, and then all of a sudden you're in that top 8 for the prize pool. The prize pool goes from positions 1 to positions 8. Winning here puts you in guaranteed prize money and gives you the ability to fight for the crown. Win here at UE Masters, it would be a fantastic pride for any team. So this is really the biggest stage that these guys have played on so far, and everybody is playing for the absolute max.
Yeah, exactly like Udog, seeing if we can get another Turkish seed into the semis, or AGH with the revenge run coming out of LCQs, trying to defeat those that defeated them in the groups. Definitely some interesting narratives coming through into the playoffs right here of UEM, and I am very excited for this game too.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the run that people have done, AGH have played a lot of games, have made their way all the way up to this one, and so are looking to continue on and be able to win this one. Sorry, can I just say that, Kagame, that is a lovely skin.
Yes, that is the new one, right? With the the High Noon, of course, with the pink chroma on Tomage right here. Gonna ward that one out. But engage, right level 1, straight onto it. Tomage having to flash away. Very early. Apave still got one more auto. Actually, that's first blood for the Vayne. I didn't think he had the damage, but I was wrong.
Oh my god, now that is a bad start, especially because this bot lane should have been pretty even. All of a sudden, Ipave is going to be up a kill, and this is the way that things begin to snowball out of control. We saw yesterday a Vayne get an early kill, and it spelled disaster. It just got worse and worse. So, this bottom lane already skewed. Now have to be pretty careful to not fall any further behind. A Vayne can certainly take over a game.
Massive lead. I mean, you back on that, you get a longsword. That's a really nice extra chunk of AD that you'll be doing, both able to help put out a little bit of pressure and give the push. Because one big problem with Vayne in the early game is her inability to shove waves very quickly. With a little bit more AD, that certainly alleviates that a little.
Already having that longsword could spell disaster for this bottom lane, and because we're expecting a lot of the fighting to want to go on in the top lane, all of a sudden, if Crazy is drawn down towards this bottom lane, Alchemic doesn't get the help, things can begin to skew. Be interesting to see this top lane matchup though. What does Alchemic do versus a very strong Darius? These are both very strong skirmishing champions. Be interesting though, will anyone come out on top? Skilled matchup, I'd say.
Alchemic in Subsistence has the advantage with that Ignite, preventing the Darius healing. I think with the extra armor shred that you're getting with the current Olaf, I think Alchemic wins, but it entirely depends on how the fight's played out.
Yeah, have to play very carefully, especially if there's any jungle intervention. Numb is going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Did start towards the top side, now going to make their way down towards the bottom with the help of a Leona. Could possibly gank onto the bottom lane, is now spotted out, however, which means that it's not going to be such a surprise for anybody if the fight goes down. Manchester actually getting the push in the middle lane, not what you expect out of a Zillion, but the bombs early versus a very weak early level Kayle is going to be a good place for Manchester to push in and possibly begin to roam, look to exert pressure on the rest of the map.
Yeah, if you've ever played the Kayle Zillion matchup, you'll know that yes, you lose priority early as a Kayle, and that is sort of the sacrifice, but at the end of the day, it's actually not too bad. You are going to take some damage, and you might be weak to ganks in some situations, but with Divine Judgment, it's actually one of the freer matchups in mid lane, but then the sacrifice is that Zillion gets the brunt.
Nom is down here, not sure if they actually got spotted out on that ward, did step back. Tomage and Life need to be very careful.
Alchemy gets the flash onto it. There we go. Life having to run away likewise with the Renata now into the bailout. I think they actually might be able to get the kill return. Tomage going to pick that one up with the Ignite, and it's going to be a 1-for-1. Chengabar on the top side actually going to go down as well.
This is what we said, the early push that Magister had means that they were able to roam up, get on, did not actually get involved with that kill, but was able to add a little bit of speed up, shielding and healing in order to just make sure everybody was safe on this dive. You can see though, we have got a split map. Ipave, Kagame and Nom down in the bottom lane, they're looking to snowball through this Vayne. And then if you're looking at the other side for AGH, it's Alchemic, Crazy and Magister. A fully split map, an interesting little situation right here. Arch taking a lot of damage, and Tomage is here.
Let's go into mid, but Arch actually has a lot of damage onto Majesty. He does not have the ult yet, not level 6. Ignite down, slowed once more. The extra damage from the Renata should be enough with the attack speed from Bailout. That means Arca is going to die.
Lovely little bit of support, helping support right here. Manchester may be the mid lane, but in this game, much more trying to be that supportive carry, something Manchester has done so well during both the group phase and during the last chance qualifier. Lovely little play, we're expecting more of that. More roams from Tomage, more roams from Manchester to help everybody else out on the map. Unfortunately, Life is quite far behind at this point, not in terms of CS, but down in terms of kills and assists. Needs to be careful to not allow any more snowballing to happen, as this top lane matchup where a point of power was hoping to be formed for Euladog has not really come to fruition.
Yeah, that hasn't, but what we didn't expect was that early advantage from Ipave and now Numb leveraging that, and I hope to see Numb continue to do that on the bot side. If we get Vayne and Graves ahead, eventually you might be able to transition that by osmosis into the rest of the team, or at least that's the hope if you're Euladog.
That's exactly what they are trying to do as the Ocean Drake spawns, so another point of pressure that could be applied. Crazy is down here, whereas if you look at Numb up towards the top lane, looking to get involved with the fight going on. See if we
cannot see what's going on right now, but as we pan back, Alchemic is on 1 HP, and Chengabar's just gonna axe that one into the face.
Does finally go down. Numb finding that fight does mean that Oh no, Crazy actually decides to go up towards the top side and wants to catch this wave probably instead of going for this Drake. Unfortunately has a lot of pressure against them because Ipave and Kagame are so far ahead. Crazy possibly looking to get in on this. More likely just going to go for the farm.
Are you going to enter at the back? I mean, that's absolutely fine. You reset a little bit of tempo for Num, going to pick up the ward, a little bit of XP in. But, you know, that's pretty good if you're Crazy right now. At least you get some farm. You prevent the good reset from Udog. At least it's worth your time.
You can see, though, that still Life and Tomich having a lot of damage down onto the higher powered bot lane of Ipave and Kagame. Need to be careful if they, you know, look to see if Num comes down here, but for the minute, the amount of poke that will constantly come out of this Renata and out of this Twitch, they deal a lot of damage, a lot across time as well. A lot of that rat poison going down, and so need to be very careful.
Alright, game slightly ahead for AGH, that extra, you know, 800-ish gold at this point, now roughly 1,000. Only 6 minutes though, Arca still managing to stay okay and even in the mid lane matchup. Depends on how well Udog can get their scaling tools online.
Need to be just a little bit careful as a lot of members of AGH are making their way down towards this bottom side. If Num walks around this wall, might be in trouble. There is a ward though in this Tribrush to spot it out, and the play fizzles out. Now, unfortunately, AGH need to be careful.
Around the corner, Hex Flash from Kagame, Solar Blade, Zenith Blade lands onto life, but there is no follow-up, which means the rat gets out.
Nobody decided to actually follow up on what was a nice engage. Arky is caught out.
Okay, gonna immediately pop Divine Judgment, flash away. Crazy now on the chase. Cyclone round 2, gonna take down Arca with the Ignite. Crazy with the Chrono Shift, you can't kill him because he's just gonna revive. And that means AGH gets away with murder.
I think we also did not entirely, you know, pull this point apart enough as, oh god, Kangaba.
Well, I think you're just dead because that Olaf is going to Ragnarok you down. And that was the power of Olaf versus Darius with the Ignite.
Yeah, the just incredible amount of aggressiveness that you can see. Kangaba decided to go with the Flash and Ghost, trying to stop that problem that Darius does run into, where you have all the damage but you can't get onto somebody. But versus the Ignite, all that healing has come through. Alchemic's healing up anyway, no way to stop that from happening. And yeah, the top lane begins to go much more in the favour of Alchemic. Possibly Alchemic needs to, you know, chill out a little bit, otherwise they're never going to get this Olaf again in the tournament. Multiple members of Euladog up here now though.
No, I mean, you have the ultimate, but there's not enough damage. I don't think the lethal range is available. Flash is, however, and the confidence is not there, so Alchemic gets away.
Yeah, they do, and I think something we need to iterate a little bit more, actually, as we see this Rift Herald being taken out, is the fact that there are multiple revives on the side of AGH. Alchemic is able to go in with the bailout, get a kill, and then be, you know, revived via the Zillion ultimate. There is a lot of ability to allow somebody who wants to go running through the enemy team. I mean, oh no.
Magister's gonna get caught out. He doesn't have the Chrono Shift that time, and that's gonna be a shutdown. Unfortunately, goes over to Leona, but it is still gold towards Udog.
Yeah, that is a nice little bit of, you know, gold, a bit of injection. Magister caught out massively there, but still, the ability of Magister and Tomish to work together to keep somebody alive. Alchemic and Crazy both want to go flying in, and now they can do so with basic immunity. It is a nice composition drafted out of AGH, but right now they need to be careful because Euladog is scaling up beautifully. Arky has managed to make it to level 6. We're looking for the level 16 to be the true spike, a level 11 to actually be able to be useful. And so we're not too far off of that point right now. AGH have to continue to accelerate them into the lead. Only a 1k gold lead right now. They need more to be safe from this Kale.
Alright, Kale and Vayne still scaling up. One big thing when it comes to these sorts of picks is that if you're only taking about a 1,000 to 2,000 deficit when it comes to 15 minutes, you're pretty happy with that, as long as the map state isn't dreadful, which it currently isn't. And a Pave maybe looking to get a little bit more gold here with Num and Arca on the way. Homage now stunned up under the tower. Kagame gonna be tanking that one. Arca finally in range for the Divine Judgment to rain down onto the enemy support, but he's gonna get bailed out alongside the Chrono Shift as we're talking. The double revives coming through, but that's still too much damage against life. It will be returned. Kagame going to die for it. Can Pave get away? Yes, they looks like they will. Retreat happens, but Chengabar's just gonna die on the rest of the map.
Jengamar's going to die elsewhere. This top lane tower should also fall down now. However, there is going to be a Rift Tower popped. I'm not sure how quickly Uladog are going to be able to get down this tower. Should be able to get first tower blood.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, there we go. Just about managing to pick that one up. Only one tower plate surviving in the top lane as well. You could see they were so far ahead, but because all of Crazy and Alchemic were top lane, that's a lot of the power of this AGH roster. They were able to find that kill, do quite well for themselves, and now with 1 minute 30 until the next Drake can begin to set up their vision, sweep things out, and get themselves in a nice position for what could be a pretty big fight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do see this recognition. Vayne is the person that we should be putting the gold into, and this is great from Uladog. Currently, a Pave having a pretty decent lead. You're only 2k down right now. If you could just keep it this way, come 20 minutes, this Vayne's going to be a massive threat in the team fights. 1 minute on the ocean. If you, it's a Hex Tech probably because of the spec bubbles, there's only been one Drake. Either way, 1 minute on this next Drake. You can probably give it if you necessarily want to, depending on the setup. That's fine, as long as you keep getting the gold in the places you need it to be in.
Indeed, as you said, unfortunate little bit of spectator bug means that this will be a Hex Tech Drake, as you said. It's a pretty good one to get as a single Drake, actually. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have Kachka with us here today, but Kachka would sing the praises of the single Hextech for hours and hours. Alchemic looking to get onto Chengabar along with Crazy.
Chengabar just a little bit out of position there, too far up in the lane, and gets paid for it.
Trying to return the fight onto Magister, though.
Oh, Lethal's there, but unfortunately, he's resurrecting. Can you do it again? Looks like you should be able to, but Kagame taking a lot of damage with the bomb. Gonna go down. Support for your mid lane is fine, but Tomage is now here. That means that Num might not get away. Ignite down, Life, few autos, that should be enough. Yep, Life picks that one up. Arca looking to get it. I mean, he's not gonna bail out anymore, so Kale will pick one up.
Finally, a pretty nice fight right there up at the top lane for Uladog. In return for that kill going down towards the bottom side, this does however mean that there is massive bottom lane pressure at the exact point at which the next Drake has spawned, the Hextech as we said. And now it's still pre-14 minutes. This is even more turret plates going over into the pockets of AGH members. Chengabar needs to be careful here, might be able to clear out this wave, but stepping up to Alchemic at this point is a terrible decision.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, you don't want to be fighting this Olaf first point. Crazy and Tomage maybe looking for another dive onto this Darius. Very vulnerable position for him to be in. Graves comes into the other side of the jungle. Alchemic immediately going to pop the Ragnarok and start running him down. You do not have enough survivability as a Darius to stop that Olaf. I don't know what he's doing.
No, at this point, Chengabar needs to back off and be nowhere near this Olaf. Getting this Olaf more and more fed, especially with the amount of revives that are on the team. You need to be so careful. Epave gonna come up against Life. Epave has no mana.
That's the issue, no mana to tumble and condemn. That means you're just going to have to run away. That's absolutely fine as long as you stay alive on this Vayne. You're a-okay. But now with the team support, I think no mana isn't going to matter because Kagame is here to help. There's the Hex Flash, there's a Soul Flare to cut away. Zenith Blade, not quite enough to land, and Life escapes just barely.
Just barely. Magister is up here now as well. Gonna have to be careful. There's a lot of champions up in this top lane. Life, though, is still on half health. Gonna need to be careful. I'm trying to steal away this red buff.
Very aggressive contest. Both teams still looking for everything. The Zillion Bob's not going to get the stun off, and that means Num gets away with the red buff.
Arca has now joined, and at this point you have to back off. Arca just ticked 6 though. Just ticked 11 though, and this means going to be a lot stronger. But look at this bot lane. What are you meant to do about it at this point? You can't send one member to deal with Alchemic. You're going to have to send 2, if not 3. Lots of CC needed, and then at that point the Ragnarok gets procced. This Hextech Drake has survived a very long time.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I think AGH has had the priority a few times. They're finally going to do it right now. But a point I'd really like to make is that I love the way that both teams are sort of reacting to plays on the side of the map. We saw Uladog make one in the top side trying to get a pick onto life, and Alchemix just sat there in the bot side constantly splitting because Chengobar can't match. And both teams just keep on making a return play, and I'm interested to see how this keeps developing.
Hey, you can see that up in the top side, we're going to have the Herald picked up for Num. Going to get this one, be able to play it down properly in the mid lane. Neither of these mid lane towers have taken particularly large amounts of damage, or really in a position to take them out without the Herald to help out. Now you might be able to crack this mid lane, blow it all wide open. And at this point, I mean, Arca is now quite strong, going to be a little bit of a threat, does not have that mythic quite yet, will be pretty soon, I'm imagining on the next back. And then at that point, it gets a lot scarier if you are AGH to actually fight in to this high-powered and well-scaling composition of Uladog.
Exactly that. 16 minutes, and you're only slightly behind. A 2k lead for AGH does have the 2 dragons, and that is going to be the main point of contention. Especially given that that Mountain Soul is going to be the soul for this game, because whoever gets that is just going to get so many resistances.
You're going to be in a position where you're actually going to be able to fight in for a lot longer, especially with people like Alchemic and Crazy going flying into the backline, having that extra ability to survive. Just a few more seconds could land you quite a few more kills. Chengobar caught out right now.
No. Poor Chengobar, he's just been left alone this entire game. Gonna go down another time to Alchemic. Not much you can do about that one.
Alchemic going to go to 5-1 and 2. You can see the power, and clearly the Strikebreaker is the decision for Alchemic. Much prefers this build over the Gordricker and has been making it work beautifully. 3-man push down to the bottom side. They want to crack this tower already, possibly even crack this inhibitor. At that point, you've then got super minions pouring in for the bot side. Somebody has to be down here to look after it, and then because the Baron will be spawning in just 2.5 minutes, you are going to have to fight there. Arca
should get stunned up. Chrono Shift coming down. Divine Judgment flash forward onto life, trying to get the kill onto this Twitch. Still not able to do so, because the Zillion is just causing so many problems, and your base is getting tattered. Num, Kagame, and a Pave now all on the return. This might be what Uladog needed. A Pave trying to get all these kills. Vault forward, another one for Uladog. 2 in response for a Nexus Tower. Well, I think you take everything you can get at this point.
Yeah, that was a nice little return kill, a bit too aggressive out of AGH, trying to end the game at 17 minutes in, which is quite aggressive, I'd say. You know, a very quick attempt at an end. That would have been the fastest game we'd have seen in this tournament. I mean, impressive, sure, but not exactly what you want to do when you end up throwing things away. Still, though, it's still a 3k gold lead, a nice big chunk of it, and you can see that actually Magister and Life, who right now are not the big threats, big carries on the side of AGH, are able to deal with Arca. It will get to the point where, of course, Arca will not go down in that situation, but still, at this point in time, not high-powered enough to be able to avoid that.
Yeah, just the one Iron Cow right now, still needing to farm up. Problem is, Cow just hasn't managed to get as many levels as they would like. Still level 12, tied highest on the map, but you would like your Kale to be in a slightly better position at this point, of course. It's only 19 minutes, but you're quite far behind compared to AGH.
Not in a particularly nice position. He needs to be a little bit further ahead. Still within touching distance, though. Not going to fall down now.
Oh, Crazy wants it. If you get the shot down into the vein, it might be exactly what you need, especially onto the Olaf being the carry of your team. And that might provide a window for AGH to either just keep pushing down the base, and with the Baron being up in 40 seconds or so, could get very rough for Uladog.
Yeah, Uladog are going to have to put up basically a last stand to keep themselves alive in this tournament. If they lose right here, they are out of the tournament, out of the running. There is no losers bracket to go down to. AGH would have completed the run through the last chance qualifier and up into the top 8. The Baron spawning in just 20 seconds time. The bot lane, the Rift Herald has now been spawned. It's going to try push against these super minions. Not going to get anything done there. And so this is going to be a proper last stand type event for Uladog. Do they fight onto this Baron? I think you have to. But then at that point, what do you do about it?
I mean, if you're really greedy as AGH with the current lead you have, you could even get Alchemic to go and solo the Drake in the meantime, but Num here, trying to look for Tomage. If you can get a pick before this fight, TP in to come, you're just not that tanky as the Graves. forcing back AGH, however, and they're just gonna start it.
That's bold. I like the call. You've got to try something at this point in time, but all of the members of AGH are here.
Pave is doing so much damage. 4,000. The dodge away from the hostile takeover. Now Alchemic onto the backline. If he can do the damage onto Chengabar, which he will. Surviving for the time being with Divine Judgment as we get a little bit of a flash throughout the entire screen. Chaos everywhere. AGH 2 down, likewise on the enemy team. But your carries are dead as Uludog, and that means your life is dead in this fight.
And is only just about surviving. Could try for a Baron still if that is the decision out of AGH. AGH have got super minions beginning to push down in the bottom lane as well. They could just try, go for this Baron, pick it up pretty quickly, and then rotate down into the Drake, which has spawned, put themselves on Soul Point as well. This is the sort of thing we expect out of AGH. That push in the earlier game where they tried to get the win at 70 minutes was unlike this team. This team are much more likely to actually try to play a slow, you know, well thought out, methodical game. Now I'm gonna try for the steal.
I mean, if he gets us, it might be exactly what we need, but it's not able to happen. Crazy gonna take that one away a little early, and now Uludog need to put up the teamfight miracle as a base defense to get themselves into this one.
You can see during team fights that Alchemic just gets that, you know, gets that speed boost out of Magister and is able to just run through the backline. Arca only surviving because of the Divine Judgment, even then goes down eventually. And then at that point, that is the main person you're trying to play around on your team just dead. Chengabar was meant to be the person to carry forwards this team in the early game. Unfortunately, that has not worked out. Still though, the likes of Arca and Epave as well as Numb doing enough damage that there is still the possibility. You just have to get the right fight.
Alright, Dragon should be all but secured for AGH now. Moving on to Soul Point for the Mountain, it should be might be end up being completely doomed for Uludog if they end up getting that Soul, but that's for another 5 minutes in advance now. The Baron buff, the target is the enemy base.
Looking to push forward, see if they can actually get their way into a position where they can clean out this game nicely and calm and controlled. Got the Baron buff. Top lane is being pushed out by Alchemic as well, and so at this point you just have to sit back, be chill, do not get caught out. If you are any of the members of AGH, you going down here will stall out the push, allow more time for this KO to begin to, you know, scale up, get to the point where KO does just KO things. Arca already dealing a nauseating amount of damage, as we can see.
Yeah, they really just keep pushing down these 2 lanes. I mean, Alchemic is too much of a threat in the top side for any one member of Uludog to be able to match with. Uludog really need a pick or some sort of advantage to keep themselves alive here, and with the 2 waves pushing in, it's going to get increasingly difficult to find an opportunity.
Luckily, the bot lane inhibitor has respawned. Crazy going in.
Chengabar taking a lot of damage, but that is the hostile takeover onto 3. That's going to immobilize them for a little bit, and that gives you the window if you're AGH, and that means Alchemic goes straight into the backline and picks up a kill.
Crazy also brought back to life by the Chrono Shift. Just lovely players all around. People going in, but knowing they have the immunity of both Tomage and Magister, these supportive champions being played beautifully. And all in all, this has been a lovely game out of AGH. The previous game was played in basically the same style. This is one that works for them. Will they be able to close it out right here, or are you going to need another Baron to actually finish the deal?
There it is, just going to keep pushing it down. I mean, you get 3 inhibs, it's just going to become an inevitability with all the super minions coming through. Life going to pick one up onto Arca right now, and it's everything points to AGH in this game. Going to pick up the win in this best of 3, 2-0 fashion, really setting the stand for the rest of their playoffs run.
It's been quick as well, a lovely little fight. Alchemic going forwards. Oh boy, that was a lovely fight out of AGH. Gonna pick up the win and eliminate Uludog Esports from Turkey out of this competition.
A great groups run, but I think it might have been the rust and the meta read coming into this patch that just made them fall that little bit short. We saw the glimpses of where Uludog really shined, but maybe it's just the lack of playing recently that led to this result.
Alchemic tried their absolute best to, you know, pull in the KO, do everything to possible. Arca did their best, but in the end, it is not enough. This is Uludog Esports done for this tournament. It's a disappointing end for a team that looked so strong during group phase. AGH, who got knocked out during group phase, have made the the last chance qualifier run and have made their way back into the top 8.
There it is. We have some replays to relive some of the best moments from that game coming through just shortly. You can see right here, that level 1, which is so big for Uludog, getting the drop onto Tomage here. giving a pay first blood.
A surprising amount of damage as well, and you can see that things just continue to get worse. Unfortunately, though, actually the amount of damage that Tom Edge able to do, and with the bailout able to survive just long enough to be able to keep dealing damage. Arca was punished heavily during the early stages of this game by 2 supports roaming around, and this is the attempt to end at 17.5 minutes, a bit more aggressive than we are used to from AGH. It was worth a shot, I guess.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got some kills into the vein, and that might have been what you needed. You need to try and make every play that you possibly can, and this is just the death ball that was AGH at this point in the game. Just too much, run it down, and the Olaf just had so much support between the Zillion and the Renata.
Yeah, there was so much support onto this Olaf. I'm not sure if Alchemic manages to pick this champion up again, barring some big nerfs and a patch change because of how strong this has been. AGH look like a threat in these big fights. Alchemic in the backline means that everything is split, all of this flashing on the screen, just flashing goodbye to the Turkish squad, taking so much damage all throughout from all sources. Everything was playing well. Every member of AGH were doing well for themselves, and this is Poland pushing forwards, getting into this top 8 spot, as we said, and into the prize pool money. This is now prize pool for AGH.
Yeah, I mean, you've locked it in, and in a short period of time, I think we'll have an interview with one of the members from AGH to recap some of the stuff over that game. It would be crazy. The jungler, of course, will wait for that to come through. But yeah, in the meantime, absolutely congratulations to AGH for that win, and I'm excited to see how well they pull off the rest of the playoffs, because quite a big win streak now.
They've done really well for themselves, have been playing well for a long period of time. I'm very impressed with this team. I was impressed with the team during groups. It was unfortunate that they got knocked out, but maybe that is what AGH needed. More games to play, more ability to keep attempting to do well for themselves. All in all, it was a lovely little fight, and now it means that AGH are going to go on and face KIT Esports. This is the issue for AGH. I think they've played fantastically. I think they could go far, but KIT Esports is a slightly ridiculous thing to attempt to take down.
Oh, hello, is this crazy? I don't know if they can hear.
Hello, hello.
I can hear, yes. Can you hear us? Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Well, first off, congratulations on the win. How are you feeling? Oh, is it not?
Okay.
I can hear stuff right now, so I'm very... Okay.
Alright, that's fine. We will continue talking until we finally pull them in. Yeah, the team that won today's match was always going to have a horrible time of it, because facing up against KIT Esports, who have come second 2 years ago, first 1 year ago, and then won last year, losing a full no games. Didn't actually lose a single game, which is a slightly ridiculous total to get. Very impressive for them to have done so, but at this point it means that, you know, AGH have done well, but is this going to be the end of the road coming up against KIT Esports next round?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, there's a lot of threatening faces coming in down the rest of the playoffs routes, so certainly some challenges ahead, but we'll see whether AGH can overcome them. I mean, they've definitely shown the ability to overcome these opponents. I mean, think about the amount of games they've played throughout the entirety of the UEM so far.
Yeah, they have definitely kept themselves in a nice spot. If they're able to win next time around, they'll be on to our finals weekend sometime later on in June. And so just trying their absolute best to keep up, continue being able to, you know, do good things. At this point, I'm impressed with this squad, definitely. Yeah. I followed them all the way through from the group stage as well, and at this point, you know, I'd like to see them do well. I just worry about anybody facing KIT Esports.
And I think we do finally have the interview. I'm ready. Apologies for the error earlier on my half, but I think we are here at last with Crazy. Hello.
Hello, hello.
I mean, first off, congratulations on the win. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, obviously. It's really nice to win the first match in the playoffs.
It was an impressive win out of you guys. What was the sort of strategy coming in facing against Uladog? What did you think of them as opponents?
We just played our good picks, I guess. We just prepared the best picks we think they are for ourselves, and we just played them. That's it.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, particularly I think the Olaf was a really big thing this game, especially on this patch. What's your sort of opinion right now on the strength of this champion?
I think it has really strong numbers, and it's strong to play right now. So it was free, we picked it, and we won.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So obviously you guys were in the Group D, which was, we were talking about it on broadcast as sort of the group of death. It was absolutely insane. A lot of high-powered picks got knocked down into the last chance qualifier. What do you think going down to the last chance qualifier really meant for you guys, having to play more games and get maybe a style more sorted out?
Oh, it's also like good preparation. It's like more scrims, more serious scrims for us. So now we have good run in the bracket from the last chance. We didn't lose a single match, I think, and now we are like on fire. So it's obviously like a huge boost up for us. So I think it's actually like pretty good outcome for us.
Yeah, sounds great. Any sort of opponents that you're really excited to face down the line in playoffs?
Oh, I think the next match we have against like Kit, I guess. So
Yeah.
there are our previous opponents from the finals. So it's gonna be exciting for sure. I think this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty insane matchup. Do you guys reckon you can take them out? Obviously, Kit Esports last time around won the tournament and did not drop a single game. Have yet to drop a game in this one either. They're very high-powered opponents, but as you said, you guys are on fire. Do you think you'll be able to take it? Have you got any fighting words for Kit Esports?
Yeah, I think we are much better than a year ago, and like the meta is really good for us right now. So hopefully we can win this time. And if we don't, it happens. But I think we have a good chance to win tomorrow. I mean tomorrow, in next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Ready to go already.
Yeah, all the tools are there. I mean, you know, scaled up through a tournament and anything past that. I mean, sort of, I guess, any sort of expectations coming into like sort of the way that you're going to keep playing? Is it going to be the same sort of style as you've shown today?
Oh, I can't say things like this, you know. Like we have a lot of styles, and we're gonna pick our best style for them.
Looks like an interesting style. One thing I'd like to mention, obviously, you played the volley bear very well today. Congratulations on that one. What do you think of that champion? Because we've been talking about it as a good flex pick between top and jungle, and good for a lot of junglers that like to be the facilitator for that team. So what's your opinions on that one?
Oh, I think it's way much better on jungle than top because it has really strong base numbers and good ganking potential and good like clearing the objectives like drakes and stuff. So it has everything you need from a jungler, and you can boost your laners and snowball game pretty hard. Like it has really strong numbers, like the base damage. Like you can basically contest every jungler and you win every 2v2, 3v3. I think so. It's really strong pick right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can definitely say it was showcased to be that within the two games. I mean, yeah, just a generally good performance. I don't think there's too much else from me at least.
Have you got anything you'd like to say to any fans who have watched you through this tournament? Anything you'd like to say sort of as a thank you?
I mean, thank you to my... I mean, I feel like my family supports me really well. Like my dad like watches every game and he's like big fan, so big shout out to him. And other than that, like thank you to every other person who watches. And yeah.
Thank you very much and congratulations on your win today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We're definitely supporting you throughout the rest of the run.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Worries. Thank you very much to Crazy for that interview. Nice little one right there. And a fantastic win for AZS AGH out of Poland. A very strong performance so far. Managed to make their way all the way through the last chance qualifier and now have beaten out Uladog Esports to put themselves into the top 8. Just a fantastic game out of them, and I'm excited for the next round we have in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, the next round will be AIX even versus BME just after a short break. So in the meantime, check out Twitch Student and Intel, our lovely sponsors who power the stream, and we'll be back shortly. Hello everyone, and welcome once more to the 2022 Amazon University Esports Masters powered by Intel and Twitch Student. Joined by myself, Takua, and Blackboxer to provide the second best of 3 for today between AIX Schwer and BME.
Yeah, it's going to be another exciting matchup. These are pretty evenly matched teams as well. We saw a very good match in the previous round between Uladog and AGH. AGH coming out on top of that one. And now on to the second round of today. And this is the final round that we are going to be seeing. And whoever wins today is going to move up into the top 8, which is the top of the prize pool right here. We're going to take a look at all of that in just a second. It's a pretty insane prize pool of 14,500 euros, and if you manage to make top 8, which just means you win today, you get 750 of it guaranteed.
Yeah, AGH locking that reward in earlier today, and whoever the victor of this best of 3 will be locking in the same reward And of course, being in this part of the playoffs bracket, it is do or die. So if you do lose the best of 3, there is no losers bracket and no second chance.
This is the very end. These teams have been through a long road to get here. They're looking to get in on this massive prize pool. First place, 5,000 euros, is a truly ridiculous amount. But even to 8th place, still 750 is a nice amount as well. It's just a big amount of money for people who are probably definitely in universities and probably quite broke.
Yeah, there is. We're going to bring it to the bracket right now to see exactly where we're at. And you can see right there, we've had the Enormous, the Bobcats, Esports, Sigma, and Team 20 from last time. Those are the matches that we're going to be covering next week on the first half. And then now, with the other half of the bracket, we've seen AGH move up. And now we're going to be looking to see whether AIX or BME are going to move up to fight PG Lions.
Yeah, PG Lions were one of the top teams that were coming out of Group C. It was a pretty evenly matched team group overall. Everything was pretty well fought out. AIX coming out second on top of Group D, which was the group of death, to be honest. It was an absolutely insane group with a lot of fighting back and forth all throughout. BME have made their way through all of the last chance qualifier. We'll take a look at this German roster in just a second. And here it is. You're going to see on the side of AX Sure, you've got 404, Shades, Relative, SJ, and Jadimi.
Yeah, there it is. What a roster to begin with. I mean, they had a lovely run for groups, as you say, but because they came in from groups, likewise with Yuldog earlier, they haven't played as much recently, so maybe the rust comes out. However, I think Relative's still going to be relatively strong coming into this matchup.
Should most certainly be able to. It's just going to be a very strong team overall. They play quite well-rounded, I'd say. Everybody can play a good match. But if you're looking for someone to really watch, it is most certainly Relative. Definitely Relative is the main carry on this team. Very high-ranked challenger. All of the resources tend to go towards this man. We'll sometimes pull out something slightly less aggressive, but we saw the Azir specifically absolutely make people's lives miserable during group stage. See if this pops out again.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be a massive point of power for this team. It'll be interesting to see exactly how BME match that. And speaking of BME, we're going to have to take a look at their roster, which is comprised, of course, of Coco, Hunty, Sora, Shruki, and Kiko.
Yeah, we've got the fun little names of Coco and Kiko. Hopefully we won't mess those up too badly. But this team we saw during the last chance qualifier played very well, beat out 0-2 as a representative from the Netherlands as well. Did fantastically for themselves. And overall, this team plays basically throughout everybody. Hunty and Sora, maybe they play together more often than anyone else, but it is well-rounded.
Yeah, very well-rounded team. I mean, it's the mid-jungle primarily, but Shruki, very reliable bot. Coco's had the time to shine, so has Kiko. It just depends on the draft. And that is an area that BME really excel in. They're very versatile in terms of the champ pools.
Oh yeah, the champ pools are absolutely massive. More like Champion Oceans, but for everybody. Usually when you have somebody with a big champ pool, it's one player. Everybody on this team is going to be able to play a lot of different things. Kiko specifically plays a lot of different things, a lot of different styles in the bottom lane, can be well adaptable, and we've actually got a more adaptable bot lane meta at the moment because all of those hyper carries are gone for this patch. This is patch 12.9. Last time we would have seen AXI Shua would have been on 12.5. We did see BME just a patch ago in the last chance qualifier. Things were very different. The bot laners were much more hyper carry and scaling, whereas now it's a lot more aggressive, a bit more getting in your face quickly, and so it'll be a very interesting to see how they actually end up playing around the fact that they can kind of play anything.
Yeah, that is the advantage. However, it does come at a disadvantage in that they aren't always able to execute. One characteristic of BME is that can be a little inconsistent at points, not necessarily a weakness in every game, but sometimes we see Sora going 14-1 on Tristana, and then when the salty run back comes with the Tristana once again, not so great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Usually we expect this team, it plays this style. When they play a different style, it goes badly. But actually, they'll play one style, it'll go great. They'll play the exact same style again, awful, terrible, gone wrong. And it's hard to get a read on this team as to when they're actually going to show up. When they do show them up, this hungry team is fantastic. Unfortunately, this lack of consistency is going to begin to hurt them, specifically during best of threes, where it's quite difficult if you do not string together a run of wins to actually come through. During a best of one, being coin flip can be okay, because if you do show up at least half of the time, you might be fine. But in this situation versus AIX, So they are a very strong team here. And so you've got to be quite careful. If you begin to throw little things, they will be punished.
Exactly that, and I think AIX definitely can do that as you sort of set up for this point. They're a bit more of a consistent team, we saw that in groups, and the question is, how much better are they? Because, yes, they did well in their group, but it has been a long time, we've mentioned it beforehand, there was a big deal when it came to AGH Uludog earlier, where you scaled up for LCQs, you've had more experience to play through the tournament, and now AIX coming back after a month's break, how are they going to perform?
Yeah, especially because BME had a good time of it coming through the last chance qualifier. They didn't come through completely cleanly, but it was overall very nice. Did win through the winners bracket as well. Managed to come in but doing a lot less games than some other teams would have had to. It wasn't the lower bracket gods run that we saw out of Yenil Mizler. You know, this team did very well for themselves in the last chance qualifier. And some of these teams needed a little bit of a kick, I think. We've seen a lot of the last chance qualifier teams do well for themselves. Last game specifically with AGH. Unfortunately, they got knocked out of the group. A little bit of a kick to say, hey, we're better than this. Get back through their domestic region, then get back through the last chance qualifier. It's a long road to get here, but an impressive one. And these teams are well up on the meta, have played a lot recently. Whereas you then look at AXI Shooter, have you guys played a lot of League? You'd hope so, but a lot of domestic regions are not playing at the moment. It is the off-season after all. How recently have they played?
It's also worth saying that, of course, these people are at university, so it is kind of like exam and deadline season for a lot of people as well. So you kind of got to balance, you know, work-life, play and everything. So when you have that break, maybe complacency comes. We kind of saw glimpses of that, and Uludog will wait to see whether that is the case for AIX. But I would say, given their group's run, we do expect a little bit more dominance from them.
I'd say so. AIX did very well for themselves, especially out of the absolute madhouse of a group that they were in. It was just complete and utter chaos the whole way through. We saw another team that came out of that group in the AGH roster just last time. So that was the third seed out of that group, and they just destroyed their opponents. And this is the second seed out of this group. Incredibly strong. The first seed out of that group is the Netherlands team. And we are expecting good things out of them as well. So, out of this group of death, clearly produced a lot of good teams. Will AIX continue to hold the side up and show that, hey, we came second, but it was the toughest group, and we're definitely here to play?
Alright, well, let's move on to the stylistic elements of both teams. It's kind of brushed over little bits, especially when it came to Relative and Sora. But outside of that, I would say that, you know, we can move it back to jungle once more with Shades and Hunty both being quite pivotal in terms of the way their team likes to play.
Yeah, they like to be the main catalyst for their team, roaming around the map, getting those ganks off, finding their ways into getting their lanes doing quite well. We are once again not seeing the biggest necessarily carry junglers, a little bit more for Shades. Shades is possibly going to pick up something like a Nidalee, really likes that, not necessarily on this patch, but a sort of champion like that can be very strong, but also can just play those sort of more not carry style, but can do damage. Tertiary carry, maybe. You're doing well, but you're not the main point of the team. Maybe a Volibear, we saw how strong that was last time around. It's a flexible style, but maybe slightly more interesting than the two junglers we saw in the previous game.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the flexibility is there for both teams, and we'll see whether they do end up leveraging that, and draft will be a very exciting point for it. And it is the synergy between these and the mid lane. Sometimes it is about leveraging power to other points of the map. We've seen BME do it for virtually all of the lanes, depending on the way they've drafted, and definitely everyone gets the time to shine. You can move on to bot in this sense, because sometimes Hunty decides to move power to bot, and we've seen Truki put out some really nice performances alongside Kiko.
Oh yeah, Shuki and Kiko, especially in the last chance qualifier, were playing excellently. Very solid and stable, constantly doing well for themselves. You could really rely on Shuki and Kiko to not lose their lane. It was never a big carry performance of, hey, we are the main threat, but it was never a losing scenario. It was also unfortunate because BME were against a bot lane from 0-2 who were the main threat. 0-2's bot lane was everything that was trying to go correct, and so it meant that they just took a back seat, and they did that well. The ability of leaving your bot lane on an island to say, just don't lose, and then actually doing it and not losing is fantastic.
Exactly that, and I think, well, we might as well go over to the other side of AIX. SG Jadimi, also relatively strong, maybe not necessarily the highlight of their team, but you know what? SG plays a lot of the meta, is able to have the flexibility that some of BME's players have, and definitely can match up to Kiko and Shruki.
Yeah, they have the ability to, especially. SJ and Jadimi have played very well throughout the rest of this tournament. Jadimi specifically, on a lot of those highly aggressive picks, the Renata, the Nautilus, things that are going to actually be trying to find kills for the enemy, for your team, and really begin all of the fights, be the catalyst for things to get going. When your top laners are more playing, well, if you're looking at the side of AX, more of the sit back, not exactly the necessarily interesting picks, it can be a little bit on you during the early game before your top laner gets into those team fights to actually begin the fights in skirmishes around the Drake specifically, and Jadimi is fantastic at that.
Yeah, I think one thing that is worth setting up for this entire BF3 is that it will likely just be weak side top for both teams. Coco has been seen to come out with a few carry picks every so often, but for the most part, that isn't a dominant aspect of BME's identity, and especially coming into this AIX matchup, I don't think that's going to be an adaptation they will make, but it is a possibility in the case of maybe later games, like a game 2 or 3.
Yeah, we've seen that the top playing matchup can be skewed by a tank on one side and an aggressive pick on the other side, but you have to apply that aggressive pick perfectly. The tank will always be useful. It's going to be big and chunky and deal with some not irrelevant amounts of damage and probably knock somebody up. Yeah, if you're on ridiculous amounts of damage. For everyone else, not insignificant amounts, and almost certainly knock somebody up, root somebody down. They will be useful. If you pick something aggressive and you win, fantastic. You're going to be able to run through people, absolutely begin to control the pace of the game. But if you end up losing out in that scenario, then you're basically useless. You've put a tank ahead, and so it's such a risk to do so. It's not necessarily what we expect to see for a game 1, unless, of course, BME want to really throw the gauntlet down and say, hey, we can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. They've shown the flexibility. We'll see whether they do that in draft. We're really nailing down this point. But a meta read is also something that's worth bringing up, because with AGH, they had the read on the Olaf. That definitely showed through in terms of the way the team played, and it's not necessarily a pick that they presented to us beforehand. Are there anything in particular that you think maybe BME or AIX in this case might be reading the meta on this patch?
The Xerath is strong right now, actually. On the patch, it's not been, buffed particularly, but actually just in the ways that a lot of the other more control mages have begun to fall down. All of a sudden, the Xerath is very strong, and the Xerath is a big pick for Sora. Absolutely loves it, is fantastic on it. Kind of looks like they're scripting, or certainly not, but it is that sort of power. The amount of ability to just constantly land those, that can swing things, and so if that goes over to Sora, could be a big point of emphasis, as we're already going to see the Nidalee off the board for Hunty, and then Jadimi's Renata taken off.
Yeah, they're paying their due respects to each team. Once again, I'll reiterate the fact that comfort picks are always worth putting aside for certain players, because you know what? Especially in the case of AIX, when you haven't played for so long, resorting to comfort is always something very nice. And there's that Talia that's kind of been poking its head through on this patch.
Possibly, if we stay on this patch for another couple of rounds, this could become a big pick. A lot of the mid laners like to pick it just because it gives that good utility to the rest of the team. We've seen a lot of utility mid laners throughout this tournament with the Karma and with the Zillion, and so it's just another iteration of that. We're going to see the Nautilus and the Kaiser go off of the board as well, and then a final ban onto the Viego. Clearly, nobody wants to deal with that from Shades. Makes a lot of sense. Shades has been fantastic on it.
Alright, AIX, with the first pick of the game, SJ going to set the standard for the rest of the draft. There are still some power picks left open, but it is on him to decide the identity, and one of those is Ornn right now. Can you inhibit Ornn in the top side?
You can, but it is very difficult. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it until it's locked in, because that would be ridiculous. The Ornn is so strong, and it gives you that late game scaling. Being able to have those ornaments come in at level 14 up until level 18 is a ridiculous ability, and it allows you to keep scaling into the late game. You will always be useful as an Ornn. The Ornn Horn will always come through, always be available to you. We're going to see the return of the Wukong, though. Saw it multiple times during the last round, as well as the day before. Everybody is beginning to love this champion. Goes into both the top and the jungle, so a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, a little bit of flexibility, and that is BME's identity, as well as providing the early proactivity, which Hunty does so like. And that might help to enable Sora, depending on those picks. And if that Lucian comes through, I actually expect that to go into the mid. Sora's had some really amazing performances on that champion.
Yeah, Sora loves it, can play the Lucian to a very high degree, but also can go down into the bottom lane with Shruki. A lot of the time when Sora's picking up, it was because Lucian was not a good pick into the high-powered picks that were coming down in the bottom lane. Now that those are gone, the Lucian is once again one of the premier picks. See if maybe it'll get paired with a Braum, which is the main pick that you like to put if you do want it down the bottom lane. And then if Sora does pick it up, you once again are in a position of flexibility. The response is going to be the Ezreal, nice and safe, will allow Jadimi to roam around the map as they like to.
Exactly, where a nice little safe bot just kind of sits there. You open up the support like you say, and then also means that you put a little bit more emphasis on relative here as the carry for your team, which is kind of expected. For AIX, we'll see a Karma probably just going to be paired with that Ezreal.
Yeah, most likely a high poke bot lane will allow constant pressure if they want it, and also just to be safe. That's a very safe bot lane if you want the rest of the map to get ahead. Also, Relative could pilot this one, has played it before. It would allow a more aggressive support to be picked up, and the lock-in is going to be the Gwen. Alrighty, so we're going to see the Wukong in the jungle, Gwen in the top lane. That is one of the ways to punish out on Ornn.
Yeah, Gwen not necessarily punishing out Ornn by directly beating the Ornn, but by having a lane where Gwen is sort of able to free scale, and the fact that Gwen stylistically will beat Ornn later on in the game, relatively good match.
Yeah, it's a nice one to go for. I like that as the pick. The Victor gonna go off the board as well, so clearly nobody on BME thinks that this Karma is going to go into the hands of Relative. The Nami off the board for Kiko as well, so even more focus going on to Kiko. Nobody wants Shruki and Kiko to be in a nice spot because they will always be a pretty solid bot lane. If you can put them off kilter, then you might be able to get the rest of the map working.
And there it is, just trying to see exactly what AIX really want to do with this, and likewise with BME on these bans. It is just seemingly the bot side. BME, of course, there's the Lucian flags to come through, banning out Relative's mid pull, which I would say is just absolutely the correct decision to continue doing that.
Yeah, Relative is very strong. The Ahri, an interesting ban. Relative does like to play it most certainly, but the Ahri has been nerfed quite heavily in this patch, not particularly a big threat anymore. Was a big threat in the patch previously that BME were playing on 12.8. Maybe a little bit of a hangover from having to face some Ahris on that one. We'll see what the next pick will be, see what direction this composition is going to go into. Offering a lot of different ones, we'll see what the pick will actually end up being for BME.
Cat Hobbit and Cat locked in, it will be that for Kiko. I mean, just generally viewed as a safe pick, but something that the Yuumi is capable of doing is sort of sitting on the Gwen later on in the game and really making that champ unstoppable.
Oh, certainly, and also very good at anti-engage. If AIX were looking to draft themselves some engage, all of a sudden you're running into that last chapter and it does not go very well. You're actually going to be stunned up so much, not be able to get in. Oh boy, you have not heard of the amount that I like to talk about AP in the jungle, and that's why I love AP in the jungle. AP in the jungle allows you to have AD in the mid lane. It allows you to open up into an entirely different composition. All of a sudden, you're now putting all of your AP damage onto Shades, who is a good AP carry player, and now we get to see Relative, the highest powered player on AIX, playing the Yasuo. I love this as a pick. The
AIX.
response, though, Lissandra, that is certainly one way to shut down a Yasuo.
Yeah, certainly Frozen Tomb, Glacial, it's Frozen Tomb, yeah. Frozen Tomb being able to lock down the Yasuo is... for some reason, I always get confused as Sejuani's Glacial Prison and Lissandra's Frozen Tomb, but it's just one of those abilities. Anyway, the ability to lock down Yasuo as a single target, prevent him from getting the wombo alongside with Diana and Ornn, but AIX definitely having done their due diligence for this patch.
Yeah, it's a nice pick right here. No hangover from playing 4 patches ago last time we saw them. I love this composition. This is the kind of composition that are my absolute favourites. I might end up going a little bit too hard onto the German roster simply because I think this is a fantastic draft right here. A lot of knockups and a lot of poke damage that you can begin your fights off with, and then getting Relative in. Relative is the best player, but if we take a look over at BME, they've done a lot to sort of mitigate what AIX have actually gone for. They have the ability to lock down the Yasuo, have the ability to stop people running straight into you. The Cat all of a sudden makes even more sense when you see the Yasuo locked in.
And we saw exactly how BME were able to utilize the draft. Initially, Evolution does look like to go to Sora because of the types of champion that Sora wants to play, but as soon as you lock in that Diana Yasuo, you can shift it straight to the bot lane and give it to Shruki in this case, and that's absolutely fine because then you get Lissandra to counterpick in the mid.
Yeah, it's quite a nice little draft right here. Both of these teams kind of playing chess with each other, trying to outmaneuver. I like it. The only thing I'm slightly worried for in BME is that if you look at AIX, they've drafted their own composition, whereas a lot of what BME have grabbed is things that are good into what AIX have picked. And being that kind of on the back foot, reacting rather than building your own draft can be a little bit hard. It is more the sort of thing that you will always do if you're on red side. You don't get that first pick, you don't get to begin to dictate, and that counter pick will always be a reactionary pick. So it makes a lot of sense for them, and I think that these are all champions that they like to play. Could be a very close matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing about reactive comps as a point I would like to make regarding that. I don't know how much competitive Pokemon and Pokemon esports you've necessarily watched, but one thing that is very popular to use are momentum moves. So moves that do a little bit of damage, come in, and then you switch back out and you can pivot into another Pokemon. The benefit of this is the fact that you get to keep deciding the plays, you get to keep momentum, and we can liken this to priority and reactivity in League, in the sense that when you have the comp that is on your terms, you're able to make the plays that you're deciding, and the opponent has to react to them. This means you have more control over the overall game state, and sometimes we can see when you play too reactively, it can be very negative.
Yeah, too reactive can definitely get yourself into a position where you've actually tangled yourself up into a bad draft where individually, you know, the Gwen is fantastic into the Ornn and the Lissandra is fantastic into the Yasuo, but actually they don't work together. I don't think that's quite the composition that has actually ended up happening here, because everything does work together quite well, but it is something you need to be careful of.
Especially when it comes to making plays later on. We want to see Lissandra matching relative, but is that necessarily the best thing to do? We'll wait and see, because it does always come down to the execution.
Indeed, it doesn't matter how well you draft. If everybody decides that they actually want to face roll rather than play League of Legends, it doesn't entirely matter. At this point in time, when we look at these two teams, they are very well matched. We're seeing AIX coming out of the groups, whereas BME moving through the last chance qualifier. Winner of this goes on to top 8, and loser of this goes home empty-handed.
Yeah, exactly that. All the lovely prizes provided to you by Twitch Student Intel, of course. Shades right here, just scouting out the enemy jungle. I'm gonna lay down a ward in that topside river.
Yeah, just already trying their best to see what's going on. Kiko taking a bit of damage, not that it particularly matters for the cat. Even if you poke down the cat, still going to be in a pretty nice spot once they jump on top of the Lucian. Lucian Yuumi is a fantastic combo. Is a fantastic combo that I've seen executed poorly, however. Something that we saw during the group phase was a Lucian Yuumi, I'm not going to name names, where every single time the Lucian popped the ultimate, the Yuumi didn't. Or every time the Yuumi popped the ultimate, the Lucian didn't, despite them being up. What you want to do is pop the Yuumi ultimate about 1 second before you then pop that Lucian ultimate. You'll be able to stun somebody up and then burst them down. They need to be used in conjunction, because that is the power of this as a combo.
Exactly, Lucian able to do an obscene amount of burst damage if he's enabled to, especially if you're able to pilot it well. I'm sure Shruki can absolutely do that, has shown the performances on it previously. Shade's gonna get a leash, whilst Hunty is going to as well. Both junglers should clear relatively evenly, although Diana's clear speed is a bit faster.
Just slightly is a pretty strong, quick clearer. The Diana needs to be piloted well, though. Unfortunately, we saw the Diana piloted pretty badly in the last round yesterday. So, what you need from this Diana is early aggression to be able to be in a position to actually land those moonfalls, which is what you are trying to do when you are matching up with Relative. The only thing is, with SJ in the top lane on the Ornn, you will be guaranteed some knockups. It's very difficult to miss an Ornn Horn unless you completely whiff it, and so this should be a good combo. There's a lot of wombo combo right here onto this German squad. What will the Hungarians be able to do about it, though? Because all in all, they have a good anti-engage composition, and definitely AIX want to engage.
You certainly want to engage. It depends on the team fight setup. A point I really like to make a lot of the time is who gets to set up first around a particular objective or fight, because that can sometimes decide positioning, and the way that fight happens, Relative gets some incredibly favourable trades onto Sora.
Yeah, you can see just the amount of damage that Sora is taking. It was likely gonna go in the direction of Sora. Ranged versus melee usually goes in the direction of the ranged, but actually this time around, Relative doing very well. Relative is a high-ranked player, a very skilled player indeed, so needs to be a little bit careful if you're Sora. Don't want to get fed. You don't want to get Relative fed, sorry. It does have the Ignite as well, so playing an aggressive style of Yasuo, as we would expect from a Yasuo player.
Yeah, Yeah, suddenly showcasing that Hunty just going to get the rest of this, but it is warded out. Relative here, maybe looking for a collapse alongside the bot lane to try and put some pressure onto BME. Going to show himself in the jungle. Hunty should still pick this one up, though. But Relative is one level up. I think Hunty's just going to get forced out.
Hunty definitely needed to get that. If the Gromp heal had not come through, that may well have been a kill over to Relative. The Ignite was up and available. As it stands though, just a little bit of pressure, and that's what you get from pushing in a lane. Once you push in a lane, you are not losing XP or CS by just roaming around the rest of the map trying to get a pressure point somewhere else. And so Relative shoving in, roaming around, this should be the pattern that Relative follows the entire time in order to make the whole rest of the map bow to his will.
That's the benefit of the proactivity when it comes to your team identity. Hopefully we'll see AIX keep leveraging this advantage versus BME, otherwise the reactivity of the Lissandra pick may end up getting more value than otherwise intended, but for the time being, very even across the map.
All in all, things are nice and chill for the early game. When we take a look at what the junglers are doing, pretty big CS lead for Shadies. This was always going to happen because of the speed of the clear of a Diana over the top of a Wukong. The Wukong is pretty impactful though into the mid game. Needs to get some early kills though in order to get that done. Needs that 2-item spike. We saw in the last game where actually Wukongs were not getting 2-item spikes and having a pretty bad time of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunty needing that early advantage, still having to farm up, of course. Shades clearing faster as we did set up earlier, so Hunty will need to make a gank or two in some time to be able to ensure that he stays in the game, otherwise it might just be a slow death for BME.
Yeah, they need to get ahead. This is a composition that wants to be fighting from a point of power, especially because the scaling over on the side of AIX is very strong. The ornaments we've talked about before, but also the ability of an Ezreal to scale, dependent on how hard you are able to punish him. Jadimi just going to deal a little bit of damage onto Kiko and then walk away. You could see the power of Jadimi. Just likes to play forwards, sit quite aggressively in a lane.
Also, the one counterpoint to this is Coco having that CS advantage into this Ornn matchup will always have this early on. Now, Coco with Kiko this time paired together with that Yuumi later on. Stylistically, a Gwen running through that, being immune, can actually do a lot, but the Gwen needs to be enabled. So we'll see whether BME can actually achieve that.
Shady's already onto this Cloud Drake, gonna begin to pick it up. Sora is walking down though, needs to be careful. Shady's is quite low health. Hunty is here, Jadimi on the way up. Shady's has taken a ton of damage. Looking to catch out Relative instead. I don't know if they know this is happening.
Yeah, but they had the Glacial Tomb onto that one, and that might mean that Relative gets the first blood. Instead, the healing from Jadimi, then the last breath onto Sora, forcing the flash away. A little bit more damage. One more Q should just do it under the tower. It's going to be traded back, but even though it's a double kill for Relative.
And more importantly, possibly, Coco died in the top lane for absolutely no reason. Ends up getting solo killed out by an Ornn. We said Ornn does a slightly nauseating amount of damage in the early game. Well, there it is. That is going to be 2 kills in the bottom lane and a Drake, as well as a kill in the top lane. The only being traded back onto the Yasuo. This is the power out of AIX. Very strong.
Not the person you want to have the gold on. You'll always take that trade if you're Relative because you get that crash under the tower. It's just massively beneficial for you compared to what Sora gets out of that 300 gold. And the Yasuo being the main damage threat on this team, it could get quite problematic.
Yeah, definitely allowing this Yasuo to keep farming up, scaling up. All of a sudden, what should have been an even enough matchup in the middle lane begins to swing in the favour of the main carry on AIX. A strong team overall, but Relative is the person we are all going to be watching during team fights, especially on this Yasuo. And once SJ gets involved, with that Ornn Horn going through, lots of knockups available, this could be some huge Yasuo ultimates that we're watching.
The Wombo is there, and so is the inhibition from the other side. It comes down to the way that team fights are set up and played around. Right now, AX with a slight advantage first, Drake handed over, and a 1000k gold lead. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's certainly still within touching distance for BME. They are not out of this game in any way. Still going to be able to fight forwards. They have a lot of power in disengage and re-engage team fights, so need to get themselves into team fights in order for that to happen. You can see the amount of damage that SJ can do to Coco. Shady's is here. Coco backing off, being respectful despite not necessarily knowing where Shady's is.
Respect is given. This is an awful wave state if you are Gwen. Really nice play from Shades here just to make sure that the Gwen can't come up and try and push this wave in, especially in the Rift Herald, preventing Coco from just having any of this golden XP, but the collapse might come through from BME.
Sora is here as well as Coco and Hunty. Everybody from the top side of BME is around. Only now does SJ begin roaming down. Needs to be careful of Coco. Jabdimi is here though, and neither of the bot lane from BME are.
Data's Moonfall immediately locked down onto Coco, recognizing that this is the threat this team. Dies immediately down to SJ. Hunty now in the back trying to slide Clone out of there, but that's 2 kills over to AIX in a short period of time.
A lovely collapse, and you can see that Jadimi, even on a non-aggressive pick such as the Karma, constantly roaming around, Relative managing to deal a ridiculous amount of damage. The decision to actually just land the Tornado and insta try to take out the Gwen makes a lot of sense. The Gwen could have been in the backline dealing a lot of disruption damage, and there was no risk of the Rift Tower going down because it was still at about half health. Hunty was trying to massively whack it down while everybody was killing onto Coco. Doesn't end up working out. That's 2 kills. And the Rift Tower going over. A lovely swing again in the side of AIX. What was a 1k gold lead, ballooning to 3.
Now the problem is this Wukong is going to be a little bit stunted. The question is now, how do you think that Hunty needs to play this out to try and get himself in particular back into the game? Some of the other elements of BME are kind of sitting pretty, but this Wukong right now really, really does need some resources.
Yeah, it's behind in CS, about 30 CS behind. Is behind in pressure too, has died twice. Shady's not managed to find the kills, but is finding enough map pressure right now. I think the bot lane is where it needs to be focused on, because the top lane clearly isn't going in the favour, and ganking and Ornns kind of sucks. So, need to focus a little bit more down onto the bottom lane, possibly even onto Relative. Relative knows that they are strong, going to go forwards quite a lot, might be able to punish an overextension out of the Yasuo.
Exactly that, taking the back right now. Reset, I'm not entirely sure if the Rocket Bell will be complete there. It is for the Diana, giving that extra engage potential. Both ultimates are up for mid-jungle, so they can definitely try and make some plays around with the Rift Herald coming up. Slight gold advantage for AIX, still at 10 minutes with 18.2 to 15.6. With the Mountain Drake spawning in 30, that'll be what the teams are looking to contest.
A lot of power could be gained by picking yourself up a Mountain Drake, going to be able to just survive a little bit longer, and also AIX could begin to stack those Drakes. At that point, you're going to be putting yourself in a nicer and nicer spot as you go through, constantly going to be exerting more and more pressure onto BME, who need to be careful. They need to stem the bleeding, find something to do. Currently, Hunty is just trying to catch up in CS, but not actually finding any pressure on the map.
There it is, Shruti in the bush right now. Looking for a BME. Really need to try and make something more proactive as we talk about that. Sora goes golden in the mid lane by virtue of that ultimate. Gonna shut down onto Relative if they can get Shades as well as a massive gold injection, particularly for this Wukong. Sora pointing it back. Shades manages to make the play. Triumph healing up a little bit, but Hunty should be able to get this. Wait, why is doing so much? Shades gets the outplay. It's a double for the Diana.
Oh, that was lovely, and straight into the Drake as well. The bot lane continued to fight as well. Shruki goes down, SJ goes down. This means that it is going to be a Drake for Shades. A lovely play right there. It looked so bad when Relative went down so quickly. Shades manages to turn it around, knowing that they are more powerful than the far behind Wukong. Picking up this Drake as well. That's now 2 Drakes to none for AIX, and they are firmly in control of this game.
Oh, just the power of being able to farm that much faster than your opponent. You can see the power that the deficit really gave to Hunty. Just wasn't able to do enough damage to the Diana. The Conqueror and the Triumph giving enough healing. A really nice turn and excellently played by the jungler of AIX.
Just a lovely play out of Shades, who is not always the biggest carry. This is why when you get AP in the jungle working, it can be so good, because AP in just straight up fights can sometimes just begin to burst out AD carries who you tend to take a little bit longer. You usually think of Wukong as a pretty bursty AD champion, will win out on those AD matchups, but actually all of a sudden your first is a Diana who is an assassin, very good at taking people out very quickly. Is just a terrifying prospect. Now the Herald going to be popped down in the bottom lane. Relatives down here too, as well as Shades, and so this crash going to be quite strong. Possibly a dive too.
I mean, Shurikiko, only the one body. Hunty gonna be here to try and cover for the play. However, all these 4 members of AIX just making sure that this Rift Herald does crash through and secure the plate.
You know what? I'm very happy with the teams today. They've used the Rift Heralds well. It has been a significant improvement over what we saw during the group stage as Kogo tries to steal this blue buff away, does not quite manage it.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, it is playoffs, the level is higher. These teams have all managed to make it here by virtue of their own good play, in whichever way, shape or form, whether it be for LCQs or the group stage. Certainly the big level of it. Shruki doing so much damage, SG gets blown up immediately. This is exactly what you want to see from BME, trying to get some gold back into their pocket.
And there's the combo. Although the Lucian ultimate wasn't popped, you pop that Yuumi ultimate first and Lucian can land all of the damage that they could possibly want to. A lovely little play right there, and already you can see just the power of this bot lane.
AIX might kill Jadimi, 1 HP just about doesn't kill with that Aerie from Yuumi. Oh, I can't help but think if it's just one more proc or another auto, he might have managed to get the kill there.
Just another couple of shots from minion damage would have taken out Jadimi there. Just a breath away from death. And this means that you can see the power of the bot lane coming out of BME. That's the big point of, you know, pride right now for this team. Shruki and Kiko, we said they were going to be solid. Right now, I'd say they're slightly more than solid. And considering the fact that the rest of the map is beginning to fall down, this could be the swing factor that actually allows BME to keep within touching distance and keep themselves in this game.
It's like a potential to maybe burst out one of the key carries in the Yasuo or the Diana on the enemy team might be the success of a particular key fight, a team fight even, especially if Sora uses the key, which is that Glacial Tomb.
Yeah, the composition works very well. Why not mash up between the Sejuani and the Lissandra ultimates? What else could be more fun? Actually, that sounds broken as hell and would be very fun.
Very broken indeed, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good time. Either way, as we look in at AIX taking down the Rift Herald right now as well. This is a pretty strong showing so far coming out of the German squad. What we were expecting, though, they did come out of their group in second place after all in what was the group of death. Sora might need to be a little bit careful right now.
Gang coming through, Rocket Belt, move speed, Moonfall flashed away from, not flashed away from even that, it's just the Lissandra E teleport. Very nice from Sora, but the Rift Herald is going to be laid down, and that should be the mid-tier 1 gone.
Mid-tier 1 might go down before the Herald even manages to get a charge off. This would mean big damage onto the tier 2. And just a nice little play. Needs to be careful though. You can see Hunty is on a flank possibly, but there's no other members actually around.
Yeah, it looks like BME just got to call off the play, let the Rift Herald take these tier 2 turrets as well. Picking it up afterwards. Hunty, however, still in no man's land. I'm not sure if you want to be in your own jungle at this time, escaping with the flash on Horn to try and get the chase down to Hunty. There's the knock up, there's the last breath, and there's Hunty's death.
Relative gonna pick up that kill, transition it down possibly into the Drake as well. 30 seconds until it spawns. Multiple members are going to take a reset, however, looking to just come back onto the map and pick this one up. You know you can, because Hunty's going to be dead and only just make it back as well. Shruki on the other side gonna pick up a tower, continuing the power train that is this bot lane for BME. It is not all bad, but in these fights, especially when Hunty gets caught out, a horrible time for the Hungarian squad.
Not necessarily gold deficit, maybe not the most at this level, but 2 Drakes in advantage. That Drake stacking, enabling those team fights even more. And the thing that we haven't even got to, Ornn's in the game!
Yep. It doesn't even matter if this team is gonna, you know, fall off in some points. Most of it won't, and then Ornn will just keep getting stronger and stronger. Ornn is level 12. We'll keep tracking this. Once Ornn gets level 13, gonna upgrade their own item. Once they hit level 14, upgrading everybody else's. 14, the ornaments come through, power into the pockets of everybody for free. A lovely little boost to everybody. It's over 1,000 gold worth of stats that you just get because you have an Ornn in the game for no other reason. It's a little bit busted and it's good fun for those German squad members. If you are hungry, you did not want to be behind at this point in the game.
Absolutely not, and your one sort of contingency being that Gwen in the top side, just being able to shred through the percent health, those 1,000 cuts into the enemy team, not necessarily being there. However, the play on the bot side might just be taking out the Gwen another time relative with yet another kill.
Just managing to run through Hunty is also now going to have to run away from SJ. A surprisingly damaging Ornn. Going to land the knock-up as well.
I wasn't quite able to get that extra Brawl proc. If you got that, then obviously the Cyclone interrupted it, but if you got that, you should be able to get another one with the Bellows Breath, and then that should be a dead Hunty. But it wasn't there. Either way, ahead for AIX, but BME Sora will hopefully try and get this turret.
Possibly a collapse into the mid lane. Got pings going down. Dimi and Relative are here. Shuriken and Coco need to be careful. Relative sped up. Should just fizzle out though.
Yeah. There it is. BME recognizing they need to get every single ounce of gold they can possibly get with those objective bounties, trying to put everything in. Of course, the gold lead, as I mentioned, wasn't too bad, but it's just the map state right now. You need the gold in your pocket. SJ might be caught out, but the rest of the team is able to support Sora. Gonna blink over the wall to safety.
The Ornhorn was not up and available, otherwise that may well have turned into a big fight to chase follow-up. You can see the Gwen, though, down on the bottom lane, continuing to push forwards, might be able to pick up this tower. Currently, the towers are 3-2. This would even things up. And so, if you are AIX, you need to continue to find ways to put yourself further and further ahead. Nicking that red buff would work.
There it is. There's the Moonfall Relative, unable to follow up, but there comes the True Shot Barrage and the Ornn. Kiko next on the platter. That is going to be a dead cat in time. There it is, another kill, but an objective bounty secured by Coco in the bot side in return.
A little bit of a trade back and forth, but at this point the game is getting a little bit out of the hands of BME. They have points of pressure, but being caught out in the jungle does not help.
Certainly does not. BME right now really facing trouble. The problem is your mid lane is so pushed back that, you know, if you win one team fight as ARX, you have the possibility of winning the game if that team fight victory was dominant enough.
Yeah, if you manage to get an ace, especially all of a sudden with all of these waves pushed in enough, you might be able to push for the victory. Whereas if you're BME, even if you win a big fight, you then have to try to begin to use that time just to, you know, push out the waves rather than actually begin to find anything for yourselves. You know, objectives or things like that. The Baron is up and available now, just spawned, and so this is the next thing that AIX can use to continue to choke out BME.
This is one big problem when you go a bit too hard on the reactivity sometimes in draft, is that you don't get to make your own plays in situations like this. And when you drafted Wukong, who really does need to make their own plays, it doesn't necessarily fit stylistically. Even still, BME are still very much in this game, with the Baron now having spawned. A dance around that objective could lead to positive implications for either team.
See that Sora is actually having a little bit of trouble clearing out waves right now. Not what you particularly expect out of Alessandra, as the Baron is being hovered currently for AIX. They definitely have priority right now, but the Ornn is down in the bottom lane with TP. Your Ezreal, however, nowhere nearby. Gonna have to back away from this one. It's gonna become a dance that we'll see more and more of. Currently, though, everybody happy to just farm up and get themselves into a strong point before actually going in.
Alright, AIX playing it out a little bit slowly. Make sure they guarantee the win here. Ornaments soon to be online, currently only online for SJ himself. Jimmy may be looking for a pick.
Everything for the minute, a little bit tense. Nobody's gone in yet. The Drake is spawning in 40 seconds, though. Everybody wants to get in on this one. It is the sole point currently for AIX. If they pick this one up, that's an Infernal Soul at 22 minutes into the game. Would be a massive boost. Need to be careful, though.
Going race, but that's the flank, but there's so much damage on the other side. The flank was there for AIX, but it wasn't executed on. However, Yasuo with the last breath now able to lay down the damage after the CC elapses, and that just means that Shades wins out on the rest of the fight after Relative goes down. It's all AIX from here on out.
Hunty being hunted through the jungle should go down in just a second. All flashes away, will make it out to safety, but that is going to be the Drake picked up for AIX. Will be able to transition this into a Baron as well if they want it. Teleport's going that way, the call has been made. Now this is the biggest swing we've seen so far for AIX. The gold lead at this point going to be 5k, will be even more once they pick up this big purple worm, and AIX firmly in the driver's seat and looking to take this game 1 victory.
So good for BME at the start of that fight. Sora landing the CC, Coco threading the needles through the enemy team, but then as soon as the Moonfall Last Breath wombo comes through, it was just too much for them to handle.
It looked bad, like you said. SJ was on the backline for a massive flank, but ended up having the Cyclone knock him up, not able to get that big Ornhorn through the middle of the team fight, which is what I was expecting to be the swing factor. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. When you're that far behind, you're just getting smacked with the wallet. Now that is the Infernal Soul gone over to AIX, it's even harder now for BME to fight in.
Yeah, just too much burst going to come out of this composition right now for AIX. It looks like it's probably just going to be Orbit over AIX, just making sure to solidify their lanes and push through. However, if BME can manage to delay till that 5-minute mark, a potential Elder flip might allow them to get the win.
It is an entire possibility. Need to continue to be careful though. Just doing their best to lay this one out quite smoothly. So far, they've had a pretty much stranglehold on BME. And as we've said, BME played a very reactive draft. And the places where it needed to do well, it has done well. Shruki and Kiko have played nicely. But unfortunately, they are so far behind the rest of the map that it's quite difficult for them to actually find those fights that, you know, this power that they got themselves in the laning phase really should have afforded.
The lack thereof of momentum lanes slowly coming through, finally pushing in. BME clearing those out when they come through. AIX can definitely look for something in the jungle. Is able. Saurus does spot them out, but they do have the power. Just make sure not to miss-execute on SJ now with the Call of the Forge Shades onto it. Moonfall now dominating BME. The response comes through. Coco now here. Shades having to pop the Zhonya's Hourglass to stay alive. Still alive, so much healing, so much shielding on this side, and the Ornn will go down as a sacrifice, but everyone else on BME is going to pay.
And nobody gets to survive for that one. Poor Shruki got blown up in an instant. All it needed was one Ornhorn to be landed, and this should be the end of the game. A lovely fight right here out of AIX, and BME not going to pick up game one. AIX, beautiful.
Showing that the rust is definitely not there. Might have been a month since we last played on the stage, but there's certainly not any worse off. Shades currently looking to go perfect this game. Will they get the kill? No. That will be a 7-0-7 Diana, 20-7 coming in for game one. A dominant performance, like you said.
AIX played that one just beautifully all throughout the map. They knew what they wanted to do. The draft told us where they were going to play around, and it was exactly what we were expecting. Relative was the main carry with a lot of support coming out of SJ, and Shady's actually across the whole map with the Diana fighting in. And unfortunately, it was Shady's versus Hunty where the big difference was. We'll see it during the replays we're about to see. Really, it was unfortunate. Hunty was so far behind constantly that just getting soloed out.
And that is sometimes the weakness of picking Wukong this early before you establish your identity. This was a really nice fight here from AIX, getting the first blood onto Yasuo, and then the trade here under the turret, solidifying the position of this mid lane, and then you go crash the wave afterwards.
The power of the Yasuo when paired with the Diana in the jungle, allowing you to play that AP in the jungle instead of in the mid lane. You can see in this fight as well, it just goes so badly for all members of BME. Getting too close, Sora has to just run away, and that is also then the Herald over.
Oh no.
This play, alright, Relative goes down very quickly, and then you're expecting, oh no, Shady's should go down. Shady's is taking so much damage, but no. Jumps back in onto Sora, pops them, and then you're saying, okay, but Hunty will clean up. No, Shady's is about 30 CS up at this point, is up in terms of a fully completed mythic, and compared to just components for Hunty, manages to take one out. This was the bright spot though for BME. Shruki and Kiko were still good.
Yeah, I mean, you can see throughout the entire game there was that CS lead, and this is just the stompy stomp of AIX going through at this point in the game, just too far ahead with the amount of stats that they had in their pocket, and then it just comes from there.
It was just lovely. If you're looking at all of these fights, this looked like it was going really well for BME. Everything is going good, and then all of a sudden Relative manages to pop that ultimate, gets a kill. SJ on the backline is just keeping Hunty busy, not able to get involved. Hunty just about limps away from this one, and then the Drake is theirs. That means it's Soul. Then they get the Baron, and then they can just push in for this final fight and the victory.
It was exactly about all they needed. That fight previously was just to kill Shruki, and there's the damage gone. They can't follow up on the rest of it, and this is the fight that just wins the game for AIX. It was a slightly slow death for BME, not necessarily making the plays that they might have needed to play to sort of stay alive a bit more, but in the end, AIX just showing that they were the better team this match.
It was a lovely fight right here out of AIX. BME pushed against the wall. If they win this next one, then we'll go to game 3. If they lose, then they are out of the tournament, done for. AIX moves on to the top 8. We'll see how it goes when we come back from break.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the 2022 Amazon University Esports Masters, brought to you by, of course, Twitch Student and Intel. Once again, we're here for the second best of 3 for today, and currently AIX are 1 up versus BME.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a stomp in that previous game. It was a very nice played game throughout all of the AIX members, I think. Unfortunately for BME, they drafted a little bit reactively and didn't actually find the proactivity to make it work. The Wukong found itself having a pretty hard time, and unfortunately the bot lane that did go very well for Hungary, it just wasn't able to have that impact throughout the rest of the map.
Yeah, exactly that. It was a very good performance from BME with what they had, but what they had wasn't necessarily the correct tools to play out the game, and hopefully the sort of adaptation we'd expect to come in with game 2 is that maybe you ditch the reactivity and, well, you can counter pick things, but at least have tools that can allow you to make plays on your own behalf.
Yeah, something with that ability to really go forwards, maybe even the volley bear instead for Hunty. It's something that we've seen them play before, had a lot more success on because there was enough proactivity to actually get things done, rather than the Wukong, where the Wukong itself doesn't have the proactivity but needs to get those early kills, early ganks off in order to actually get to a point where they're useful. Yeah. And so if you don't have those lanes with good gank setup CC, otherwise it just doesn't end up working. So unfortunately, you know, the draft that happened beforehand didn't work so well, but luckily you can sort of just blow this one up because it was a reactive draft and it wasn't a draft that they were trying to build for themselves. They can just say, hey, it didn't work, we'll build our own draft, because we know that they have their own style.
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, it's a very versatile one at that. Coco generally being, not Coco even, sorry, Sora even being at the sort of centerpiece of that. I mean, you've had those really big highlight games, and this time we see Sora literally being put on reactive counterpick duty, which is not what the player normally excels at doing.
No, it is not indeed. We usually see Sora playing something a little bit more aggressive, you know. Plays a lot of the Karthus, plays a lot of the Xerath. That would be an exciting pick if it doesn't get banned out. I think it was banned out last game. But if it does come through, all of a sudden you're in a position where you can actually dictate the pace of the game rather than reacting to everything that AIX threw at them, because AIX got a pace very quickly on and just didn't let up. They kept going the whole way through.
They certainly did, and it just goes to show that they didn't really let down after their successes in groups. Very, very clean performances from both the mid-jungle of Relative and Shades. I mean, that Diana play of the 1v2 was phenomenal, and I expect even maybe to see that Diana getting banned.
Yeah, quite possibly. Was very well played, and it really opens up the rest of the map. All of a sudden, you can play your AD somewhere else. It can go into the mid lane, perhaps. We can see Relative on something else for the AD. Girls also play the Yone as well as the Yasuo, which would be insane to see. Good wombo combo there as well with other picks. So it will be very interesting. We'll see a little bit of the bracket again, just to see where these teams will be going should they make it through. We already saw who's going to be Kit SE's White's opponent. It is going to be AGH. But for now, we're looking for who's going to be the opponents of PG Lions. Will it be BME or will it be AIX? Sure. If AIX win right now, they are going to move up into the top 8, into the prize pool. Whereas BME, it is do or die.
Yeah, exactly. BME having had such a long run from failing in groups to then going into LCQs. But PG Lions, a formidable opponent for either person to qualify up into the quarters, and certainly an exciting matchup when that does occur.
Oh yeah, PG Lions did fantastically for themselves. 9-1 in groups. Just were running through people the whole way through. Did a fantastic thing for themselves. Actually only lost to a team that actually didn't do very well for themselves in the Rebels, you know. Everything else was absolutely fine. It was more a lost game through an accident, I'd say, rather than them actively being beaten. And so PG Lions, very strong. Not quite at the tier, perhaps, of a Bobcats or a Kit SC, but only one game behind them in terms of power. Whereas, if you take a look at the groups that AIX and BME came out of. AIX specifically came out of the same group as Esports Team 20, who ran through people, also the same group as AGH, so a high-powered group, certainly. BME from a slightly less high-powered group, to be honest, Bobcats and UDLAG, who we just saw lose out previously, but still possibly able to fight their way forward. You can see the way that groups shake out, really, where all of a sudden you get a lot of high-powered teams concentrated in one place.
Yeah, it really depends. It's luck of the draw sometimes when you get, I know, some groups that are just physically stronger than others because of the teams that are in contact with each other. And then in the case of AGH, like we talked about, not having made it out of that group despite really putting up the performance, and because we saw it today. So
yeah, we saw just how good they could be, end up falling down, but only just. It was an excellent performance out of them in the previous game. So, looking at who will place up against PG Lions in this game, it's been a interesting series so far. I really want BME to show us something different though, because last time around, reactivity did not work.
And it's on the cards for them. We have seen so many different things come out of BME. It's one of their strengths, and it's also one of their weaknesses, because sometimes the fact that you have so many options means that you aren't always so comfortable on them. And in this case, it was like, oh, you know what? I could play with Lissandra. I have that in my champ pool. It's pretty good here. Ended up being that it wasn't enough to showcase that, and hopefully we see more of those, I guess, more flashy or outstanding picks from the team.
Yeah, possibly, because they have a lot of interesting things that could be pulled out, specifically Coco. I'd like Coco to pull something out crazy. Has the Irelia, has the Camille, has the Yasuo, if you want to pick that away, make sure Relative can't play it. That could be so much more interesting than what they did play, which was very reactive.
Well, only that is the general thing. I mean, sometimes you see teams, we've had it before, where you draft incredibly reactively the first time, and then you just say, you know what? We're going to scrap that. We're going to go full aggro, straight, going to hit your face sort of team comp, and then go from there, because, we're fed up of just having to react to your plays. We're going to make them instead.
Yeah, and it's also easier to execute sometimes, having a big wombo combo team. Obviously, landing the wombo combo, I don't know, a big shockwave into, lots of different ultimates piling on top, that's quite hard. That's a lot of people landing skill shots. But just having the proactivity to say, we are going to start, maybe even it comes from an Ornn, just having the Ornn to say, look, we will be able to blow the Ornn horn, be able to knock lots of people up, this is how we start our fights. That's the engage just solidly there. Whereas before, in the previous round, there was not that true solid engage. Wukong's engage is a little bit wishy-washy. The Yuumi was really the best engage, but it meant that the Yuumi was off of the Lucian so often that actually the main point of power was not able to play properly.
We saw it when Shruki was either unable to get into a fight properly, or got killed or picked at the beginning or early on in the fight. The damage numbers just weren't there because of how far behind the top side was. And it came off the back of the early game advantages that we got. Hopefully we'll see some more dominant lanes, hopefully we'll see some more even lanes. It all does depend on the identity in draft. And it comes from these mid picks. So what happened was, Relative, you know what, we're going to go with Yasuo. That gets reacted to by the Lissandra, but that really solidified the identity for both teams.
Yeah, as soon as you click something reactive into the Yasuo, you're chasing him around the map, and because Yasuo can kill people so quickly and Relative is so good, people were dead before the point of which, Sora had even gotten there, and that meant that the constant reactive playstyle wasn't working. If you're going to pick something reactive, it has to be something that can follow. Maybe something, if you want to be a little bit reactive to Relative, but also proactive in your own way, maybe something like the TF or the Galio, where you're able to follow wherever Relative has gone, you're able to follow, get in on that fight, and then you're also being supportive enough with either the gold cards or the ability to stun somebody up.
Precisely that. The ocean is there for both teams. It's exactly how they use it. And, well, I think AIX don't need to make too many adaptations. It depends on exactly how BME draft, but would there be anything in particular that AIX should change compared to last game?
I think you're never going to see, well, not never, saying never is a little risky, but you're unlikely to see change out of SJ. SJ in the top lane really likes to play those big tanky carries. Maybe something like the Shen would be more interesting, possibly. Can be a little bit aggressive, gets across the map, but it's not that impactful at the moment in this meta. So in the top lane, you're not really going to see anything change. SJ and Didimi maybe put some more power into their hands. They got a little bit battered around by Sora and Shruki, by Shruki and Kiko. So if you decide to go that way around, all of a sudden, you're putting more power into the bottom lane, saying, hey, we believe in you guys. But they don't need to change anything. That's the luxury of being 1-0 up and on the verge of making it to top 8. You do not have to change things. Much more of the emphasis is on BME, who really have to blow the whole thing up and start again.
Yeah, BME on the brink of death right now, and it's a really good point you make about the bot lane, because that was the glimmer of hope that BME really had that first game. Maybe it's decided that, okay, you know what, I'm not having the best day as Sora, I'm just going to try maybe play for bot. We've seen BME have strategies where they sort of convert mid-jungle priority or mid-jungle power into bot power in Shruki and Kiko, and seeing that, okay, you know what, our bot beat their bot isolated, let's just put more power into them and see how that plays out.
Yeah, it was... I mean, Lucian Yuumi is a strong bot lane, but you could make it stronger in terms of pure 2v2 if you gave the Lucian something a bit more aggressive. A Braum, perhaps? Alistair, Leona, something that could really start the fights. The Yuumi is very good once the Lucian gets in and starts the fights, but then all of a sudden all of your pro activity is on Shruki. Allowing a support that can really also initiate would be useful in that situation. Maybe even, and I mean, I would absolutely love to see out a few times during the last chance qualifier and yesterday as well. It's super high powered and it allows your bot lane to fully have proactivity. Pair it with a big tanky bot laner and all of a sudden you're having the best possible time.
Precisely that. A lot of options available to both teams. And you know what? At the end of the day, even if BME goes out here, look at the run they've had. They played a huge amount of games in groups. Went for LCQs, dominated the winners bracket in that part of the tournament. Now in playoffs, you know, even if you go out today, I think you can be very proud of the performance that you've shown for Hungary and the fact that you've managed to do this with a lovely team around you.
Yeah, a fantastic team that's played well for themselves, developed themselves a little bit of an identity, and done Hungary proud. Can go back to the region as the top dogs, continue to fight, hopefully make it back to UE Masters next time around as well. You know, doing that region proud. Whereas for the German squad, you know, this is the only remaining German squad available, but also Germany sends a lot more representatives, is a bit of a bigger region, and so, you know, losing here is not embarrassing for Hungary. I think they just would like to put up a bit more of a fight for their own pride.
Yeah, it's definitely worth noting. When you have a bigger region, you sort of have the advantage of being able to play versus other maybe higher caliber teams. Not strictly true, but you know, you have a little bit more competition, you have more resources, and you can see the sort of development in between teams being able to exchange information and play. So AIX definitely doing well in this tournament. I mean, of course, the other German seed being KSC White, the current reigning champions, are waiting for AGH in that part of the bracket, but that's another story waiting to be told.
Yeah, that's the way that these tournaments work. These international tournaments, it's the same in the professional leagues, it's the same in every sporting league whatsoever.
Yeah.
You send your best and your best couple to go and possibly lose horribly, and then they come back and they transfer that knowledge to everybody else. Even losing, you are going to begin to find that knowledge and level up your whole region. That's what this tournament is about. As we head on into draft, we'll see, will BME be able to continue making Hungary proud, or will they go home having made it decently far into the tournament?
Bans are currently just as if they were in the previous draft, with the Talia and Lily targeting out jungle respectively. Hungary still waiting on a few more. I would like to see maybe a Diana come through, because that really did become a problem for them.
Yeah, the Diana was a massive problem. The Renata going to be taken off the board instead. Currently the exact same set of bans from both of these teams. Clearly they knew what they did not want to face. If you're BME though, it's on you to change things up. This Hungarian squad lost the last round. They have to do something different, or possibly AIX just play the exact same composition. And if you don't have a counter, which is what they thought they had previously, then what do you do?
course, BME this time being on blue side, they have the power of being able to have that blue one pick, being able to pick anything that is not banned in the game before any other player can, or now coming through preventing that inevitability that SJ had last game.
Interesting that that's the decision. Clearly, that's what they thought was the issue. SJ on the Ornn. The same ban kind of come out of AIX again as well. Taking the Ornn off the board, it really does change up the sort of style that's going to be played. Still, you're expecting SJ to play something big and tanky, but the premier and best big tank in the top lane is now gone.
Yeah, exactly that. Maybe it suggests that Coco might want a slightly more dominant carry champion. Yes, the Gwen is capable of doing that, but a matchup where you can really dominate versus something that isn't the Ornn, but instead it will be that Lucian flex locked in once more.
Yeah, picked up once again, could go to Sora, could go to Kiko. It was very strong last time around. Maybe if you build a team composition around it, it could be even better. Pair it with an even stronger bot laner, someone you can actually really go forwards with, then this might go a little bit better. We'll see what the response is out of AIX. Are they going to pick into the top lane again, give themselves something stable up there? No, it's going to be the Nami. Don't want to give over the Nami. Lucian makes a lot of sense. Nami Lucian is a disastrous combination to play against, so taking it off the board, bit of a counter pick rather than necessarily what they would have wanted. What will that be paired with, interestingly? You do not want to pair it with something that doesn't want attack speed buffs. This would like it.
Yeah, certainly would when you go over the lethality build, which is the better build currently. Getting a few little extra bits of attack speed or damage on those autos certainly helps to offset the fact that you don't have quite as much attack speed when you're not using Strut. Now, the one problem about drafting this sort of squishier bot lane for AIX is that if BME really does go hard in on bot priority, then you have a greater weakness of being blown up.
Yeah, quite possibly. So it's a little bit squishy. Hunty is going to pick up the Volibear. Now, this is what I wanted to see for Hunty. Called this out specifically in that it will be a good matchup in the fact that Hunty likes to get aggressive, and the Wukong really wasn't allowing that early game power, so the Volibear will be much better at that. And if this Alistar is locked in, I like this bot lane duo as well.
A lot of lockdown, a lot of force if that comes through, but there is that Braum is exactly as you mentioned to provide the CC, the slow, and the lockdown to enable Shruki in this case, and we are imagining that the solution is going down bot this game.
Yeah, most likely it would make no real sense to split up the Lucian Braum, one of the top bot lane duos that you think of. The Malphite was locked in for SJ, another big tanky engaged champion, exactly the style that they like to play. Could be punished though. You can begin to get a lot of damage down onto this kind of champion, so we'll see if Coco wants to play something a little bit more aggressive as the Silas is taken off the board for Sora. See what the response is. Maybe you want to start pinching out Relative's champion pool at this point.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a good idea. Right now, both teams really waiting on this mid pick. Once again, now with AIX having the counter pick in mid, it's going to be them utilizing that to their advantage. Sora having to pick before Relative in this case, but instead it will be that Diana caused that, which caused problems even for BME the last game.
Yeah, the Gwen going to come off of the board now. That was going to be able to punish into SJ very hard, and as we saw previously, Coco does like to play it, so getting rid of it makes a lot of sense. If Ornn has an okay time versus Gwen, you know, Malphite does not. Malphite has a much worse time, cannot get away from the Gwen. Taking it off the board makes so much sense. Now, will there be any focus actually put down onto Relative in the mid lane?
There it is.
There
Ban
it
the
is.
Diana. You know, that's a new one for me. Combine the two names. But yeah, you ban the Diana, but the Yasuo's still on the table. Still want the Yasuo gone. Too much power for Relative. That'll be interesting if that comes through.
That would be fun. Especially, though, with the Yasuo being locked in next to a Malphite. Nobody wants that. That's a horrible time. Oh, I like this pick. Shady loves playing this. Absolutely adores the Kindred. We mentioned it earlier when we were talking about picks that Shady's likes. Gives a lot of ability for your carries to play quite far forward. So we are expecting, though, some AP on Relative. We saw AD in the previous game. What will Relative pick out for the AP this time around?
Oh, this is a champion that Coco has played a little bit of, sending someone to the Death Realm here. That isolation, maybe denying Malphite from doing things, or just killing off a Squishy, which currently there are 3 of on the side of AIX, potentially providing a lot of value and much needed AP damage.
Yeah, most certainly. I like the laydown of the gauntlet. It is so aggressive, as is this. The LeBlanc pick, that is Sora saying, hey, I know you're the premier carry relative. I don't care. I am here to play, and I love it right here.
Right, the Yorick Hover, if that does come through, suggests that the Malphite is going mid. Not necessarily something I'd want to play into the LeBlanc, but there it is. If that comes through, that is relative signature Azir.
Is
2 more
fantastic
seconds.
on it. Go on, there we go. We saw some just ridiculous dividing of the sands. Just Emperor's Divide coming through, destroying people. Relative is so good on this pick. One of the best ones for what is the best player on AIX. A very solid composition out of both of these teams. A lot of team fighting power, but more pick potential on BME.
Yeah, that's exactly really what we wanted to see from BME, is to say that, you know what, we need to start taking fights on our own terms, and this is exactly the types of champions we need for that. The engage from Volibear, the engage/disengage of Braum, and then just the amazing mechanical outplay potential that LeBlanc can sometimes provide, especially when they're ahead, is certainly stunning for BME, and we'd like to see exactly if they can execute on it.
Very high powered, all parts of this composition for BME. Definitely has its own identity. Picks before you get into the fight. Pick someone off with Coco. Pick someone off with Sora. Then Shruki and Kiko can just lay down the damage. Also the 2v2 very strong. Both of these 2v2s very strong. Actually will be an interesting time to see which of these come out on top. But I'm looking in the mid lane. Sorry, but relative on this Azir, it's insane.
I mean, into an LB as well, it's such a volatile matchup, potentially. Normally when you see the Azir be, oh, Resident Sleeper, Azir, Corki is just going to be farming out till 30 minutes. But no, this is relative on Azir, and this is into Sora's LeBlanc, so certainly more exciting than the typical Azir matchups you might see.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting time right here. Relative during the group stage just destroyed people on the Azir. It was a ridiculous time. So fantastic to see it picked up again in this game too. We are going to say once again, AIX win. They move on into the top 8, into those quarterfinals, fighting for the championship. BME, if they lose, they are out, they are gone. They have got to win this backs against the wall to take us to a game 3. I'd love to see a game 3. What do BME need to do to take us there?
Well, you talked about the Volibear. I think that is the key, and I'm sure you know exactly what that Volibear needs to do. Go around to the lanes.
Yeah, gank, gank, gank. That has got to be the mantra going round in Hunty's head. If you're not finding ganks on this Volibear, it's not useful. The skirmishing power of a Volibear plus a Mordekaiser as well, that's ridiculous. You can heal so much, you can skirmish so well. We'll be able to punish the Malphite if that's the direction you want to go. Or Braum and Lucian have fantastic setup with that Winter's Bite into stun, procced very easily by the fact that Lucian is able to auto-attack twice by proccing any ability. It all works so well together, and then the gank setup that will be available. All of a sudden, you've got a Volibear on your face. You're not going to have a good time. It is all on Hunty's shoulders right now. Sora versus Relative is going to be explosive in the mid lane, with or without jungle intervention. It's the rest of the map where jungle intervention is going to make the difference.
Yeah, precisely that, and this time there is no inevitability inside of that one because that was banned out within the first ban phase. BME recognizing it's not something they want to deal with, and in this game, very, very much appreciated because it means if you do take a slight deficit or if you botch a play or two, it's not actually that bad because you're not going to get punished come 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world as it could well have been should there have been on the board. Very good drafting out of BME, I'd say. I like the fact as well that the mid lane should be explosive in the pure 2v2, but also if these guys want to just go, actually, I'm not interested in fighting each other, let's get around the rest of the map. Can go top lane, explode some people, get in on the fight. Could possibly go bot lane and also get in on those fights. The Drake as well as the Herald spawns are always going to be impactful too.
Exactly, as Drakes can be very all-important in terms of deciding whether you need to prioritize the Drake stacking. AIX last game really played a go-face strategy in terms of trying to Drake stack as fast as humanly possible. I mean, they had Soul like 20 minutes or something, which is ridiculous. Really pushing for lethal on that end.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. All the way through was a little bit of an insane match by AIX. They kind of squeezed everything out of BME. BME, though, have drafted themselves a much better composition to actually be able to fight back right now. I think that the pathing should be more top lane focused actually out of BME. I know that you might want to get your Lucian Brom ahead, but your Lucian Brom will be able to get themselves ahead most likely. They did in the previous game, certainly. So if you don't want to put all of your focus down there, try get the rest of the map going. That being said, if all of a sudden you do decide, actually, our win condition is the bot lane, let's play through them, then you can.
And maybe it's the case where Shays decides that, okay, recognizing the adaptation from BME, maybe I need to spend a bit more time covering from our bot because it was the one weak point of last game. It didn't end up mattering too much because the rest of the map was ahead enough to sort of offset that problem, but it was certainly there.
Yeah, the ability was there, and if things begin to go worse and worse, snowball out of control, all of a sudden AX is not able to play around the mid top lane like they were previously trying to. Instead, they're having to focus down to the bottom lane, and that could spell disaster once you get off kilter. This team AX, they like to play from ahead, they like to play from their own solid position. Put them off kilter, all of a sudden they don't know what to do.
Alright, well finally I believe we'll be loading onto the riff once more, powered by brilliant sponsors Twitch Student Intel. Check them out when you get some time. Do or die for BME here, and AIX really wants to move on, secure some prizes in that top 8. That is quarters. Nothing too fancy going on with this level 1.
Everybody just staring at each other and not a lot more. It makes sense. You don't want to throw things away right at this point if you are hungry, and for Germany their composition is not too strong level 1. The Brom is good on a level 1 invade, but if you don't want to risk it, there's no real reason to do so. Everything should be pretty chill for the minute. As a bit of damage being poked down onto Shruki, will be able to get that reset off, and everything else is pretty calm.
Yes, she's just going to take the reset, make sure our mana bars are filled up. MF, early game, notable for using an awful lot of mana. That's why you go, you can go Comet plus Presence, or you can go Comet Biscuits if you want to go that route. Get the mana, make sure you get Mana Flow Band picked up, especially for the Lethality build. You will get a tier on this build later, or you can go Crit Fatality as well, depending on the route, but mana is a big problem. So after using 3 E's, I think you do need to refill that bar.
Most certainly, there is no way you can continue to actually fight in the lane. Being down in mana as an MF is awful. You run out of really anything to actually do, especially in the early game when auto attacks don't hurt too much. Take a look at this top lane right now. SJ needs to be careful once the level 3 is hit. At that point, Coco begins to get out of control. Even then, you need to be watching out for ganks too. The Mordekaiser is so strong in the 1v1. It is designed as a champion that wants to be able to fight in those situations. So SJ going to be sitting back, but that's no skin off SJ's back. That is their usual playstyle.
Yeah, something that's worth noting is that recently the Mordekaiser has been buffed up with that move speed from passive, getting the extra latch down onto the enemy might end up mattering a lot versus some Malphite matchup who doesn't necessarily have the most mobility, does have the movement steal with the seismic shard, but outside of that, nothing more.
Nothing particularly interesting going on at this early game juncture. We can just watch the bottom lane getting pushed in. This is what we're expecting. Once Brom hits level 3, then the threat is there, but for the pure push, the ranged matchup is always going to win versus a ranged melee, and especially when you have a Nami, that's a lot of poke damage as well as the MF, so it's not going to be a fun laning phase for BME's bot lane until they decide to go in, but at that point, once they do go in, it should go more in their favour.
Alright, Relative being pushed back a little bit, and that's the power of the Volibear, like you say, the exertion of early pressure. Volibear is very much known to be able to do. Going to pick up that top crab as well, and then clear out the rest of his topside jungle.
Doing their best to just begin to get a bit of pressure. This is what I wanted to see, some more proactivity out of Hunty. The first gank didn't end up working out so good, but that is fine still. It's the intention that matters a bit more right now. Just seeing the fact that Hunty is happy to get involved and not just sit back and begin to farm. AIX Shades is going to have a very hard time looking... Oh, BME Coco. Just going to have to flash away. Yeah, a little bit hard. Shades is going to be looking for all of those marks though. That's the most important thing. Did not end up picking up the first mark because Hunty got that Scuttle Crab. So already Shades in a bit of a hard spot.
The interesting thing about that flash situation, well, I'm going to hold that fort because we're going to get a fight instead. Lockdown SG is now Shruki trying to land the autos. Flash forward. There's the Light Slinger autos. Can he get one more? First blood secure for Shruki. One more auto onto SG will do it. It is traded, but it's a double kill for the bot laner of BME.
You can see, although they're getting poked out constantly, BME's bot lane is much stronger when it comes to the actual fights. Luckily for AIX, they do manage to get a return kill, but still, 2 kills over to the Lucian already is not what you want.
Yeah, especially as such a squishy lane in the MF Nami. You could see, despite the health disadvantage that Kiko put onto himself, having interrupted their backs, still too much damage coming out from Shruki. Unfortunately for BME, the wave state is awful for them, and this is going to slow push in to the point where SG might be able to get a freeze, although it is a lot of minions, so I'm not entirely sure if that will happen. But either way, SG keeps everything. And now Shades is here as well, maybe looking for Hunty.
Hunty is going to have to be careful. Could have gone in there, decide not to. Shruki is very strong right now, but this is 3 members versus 3 members. AIX fleeing. Relative and Sora on their way down too.
Just sort of a posturing from both teams before they leave, and there it is, BME Shruki now able to get the crash.
Everybody attempting to get involved with this fight. The Infernal Drake has spawned as well, which is a point of pressure if you want it. But everything else is going to be a little bit chiller. Relative is not as strong right now as they would have been in the last game, simply because the Azir takes more time to actually begin to be impactful. You need that level 6 really, and you need a couple of items. Once you have that Emperor's Divide, it will be a lot easier for Relative to actually get involved with these fights. Up until that point, though, actually Sora will have a little bit more priority on moving around to fights.
Alright, slight advantages here just in the ball. Outside of that, the rest of the map is even. A, minor CS lead for Coco, but that's still somewhat expected in the Mordekaiser Malphite matchup. We'll have that early advantage. What I would like to see leveraging more, you saw Hunty pivoting down to make sure that Shades didn't really capitalize on the fact that Shruki and Kiko were trying to push in, but just to keep leveraging this bot lane advantage. You have 2 kills, Lucian, now you're going to have the Infernal Drake. I'd like to see the continuation.
Like the aggressiveness and the actual push forwards we're seeing out of Hunty. Last game around, actually, on the Wukong, we saw very little proactivity, no actual getting involved with fights. It was a pretty boring game out of Hunty. This time around, going way further forwards, much more aggressive, and it's a much better solution right now, actually having a good time.
SJ in the Riversaurus. Here's the LB. No mana on the Malphite, but too much HP to take the fight, unless SJ decides to walk into the jungle.
SJ posturing for it. An interesting amount of confidence right now. Does have the 6 though. Could be impactful. Shady's right now looking to get 6 as SJ's in trouble here.
Yeah, there's that movement speed slow. Just able to get himself out of that one before the Death Realm came through. BME though with a collapse. Jadimi is very much caught out. Gonna be rooted down. Hunty with the stun, with the storm. Another kill for Shriki.
It was a very nice little pick-off right there, catching out the warding jungler. This is a much nicer start right now for BME. This is what we were hoping for last time around. Finally looking like they're going to be a bit stronger, and now all of a sudden SJ needs to be careful.
Certainly does. It looks like a impending dive potentially. MF moving away.
Boy, that was a risky situation right now. Luckily, SG gonna be okay. Continuing to fight forwards as now this Herald is gonna spawn. We can see Shady's around for it already, but Coco is there too.
You're looking for it. 2 flashes burnt away. I'm not entirely sure if you had to, but I guess as a level 4 Braum, I think you died there to a bullet time. Unable to put up your shield. Afraid of flashes. In some senses it's better for Shruki, but that's a lot of damage still now from the enemy bot with that Dirk being completed.
You can see that despite the fact that Shruki is very far ahead of SJ, still taking a lot of damage off of this MF plus Nami combo. If a bubble lands, it could be disaster. It's not going to be an entirely easy fight for them to just constantly win. But once ultimates come through for Kiko as well as Shruki, it may go more in their favor. Hunty on the way down does have ultimate, could be a dive if they wanted it. Unlikely with this wave state.
Yeah, not particularly, but it is a very different BME that we're seeing in this game too. It's sort of more of an expectation. Yes, we noted that they're inconsistent, but this is what happens when BME is really out here to play. 9 minutes this time, they have the lead, but Hunty now caught out having to Stormbringer over the wall to escape, but nonetheless, he does survive.
That was a lot of damage being laid down. Unfortunately, SG decided to put the ultimate in the wrong position. Does not manage to land that one still, though. A very nice little attempt right there. You can see that still, despite being put far behind, having a nice time. And actually, if you take a look at the CS, there is a big CS lead beginning to form for Shadys over Hunty.
Certainly Kindred's ability to be able to farm up around these places certainly showing right now. Rift Herald in their pocket too. Not entirely sure how many marks have been achieved, as with no kills it would have just been the ones off of jungle camps, but still a nice farm advantage for the Kindred.
Yeah, Kindred doing well for themselves. This is the split though. Hunty was always going to be down in CS because the Volibear is expected to go around trying to gank rather than trying to farm, as is more important for the Kindred. Kindred will want to get themselves, you know, good amounts of kills, but this is later on in the game. This is a team fighting champion rather than a champion who's particularly interested in actually going for those early ganks.
It just depends on if there is an angle too. If you can leverage it, you can get some early marks and that can really snowball the game, but if it's not possible, you can kind of wait a little bit more onto it, even if it does feel a bit worse not being able to get your extra attack range and enhancements on your abilities. Even still, AIX playing it slow because that's what they know they need to do. Wait for the team fights, wait for those opportunities, and then you can shine.
Very much a team fight composition right now. You want the big ultimate out of the Malphite. Shady's keeping people alive when necessary, and relative SJ laying down all of the damage. It's a nice composition once you get to those late game fights. The early laning phase was never going to go particularly well. The fact they're in 1k touching distance still absolutely fine. Possible lane gank out of Shady's. That would be interesting, as I imagine Sora has not actually left the game. That would be unfortunate.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, you know, when you get the tournament realm things, you know, every now and again this stuff happens. Absolutely fine, it's just really like a visual thing. There's nothing wrong with the actual service itself. Anyway, Shruki gonna take a trade onto SG. Culling coming through a lot of damage, but it's blocked by Jimmy. The Gale Force around the corner locks it on. These homing missiles, those are Shadys, will get the one kill onto Kiko. It will be returned, but more power into Shruki. Hunty now looking for it. The stun is available. Flash forward. Jadimi gonna go down. Sora picking that one up. 2 kills for BME.
Teleport come in for SJ on the way, looking to get that Malphite ult in.
And there is that Emperor's Divide. Stormbringer over, but there's SJ with the Unstoppable Force to get that one, and it's completely traded as AIX get their second collapse.
It's a bloodbath around, but now priority onto the Drake. Going to be able to even up that Drake trade since Hunty is now dead. It was a really nice counter gank coming through. Teleports blown as well. As
I'm just clearing the wave, although there is
SG?
potential. I mean, if you
No.
go any further forward, I think you die, so...
If you get within melee range, you die so very quickly. I can understand why SG would like to go for it, but also I understand why they are not. Also, the Rift Herald now going to be hooked into the middle lane. It's going to be a lot of damage onto this mid lane turret as well. And this is a nice swing in gold, actually bringing themselves closer to even with BME, considering they were quite far behind during the early game.
Certainly that BME still with a slight lead, although at this point it is a negligible one, but Jadimi might be able to go down here. Sora doing so much damage as the LB. 2 more autos will do the trick. Ignite tick down. Sora gets that kill.
Picking up another kill does Sora. A lovely little fight right there, and you can see, unfortunately, Jadimi keeps getting caught out. Very, very squishy as well on this Nami. Interestingly, something I don't know if we mentioned during this last fight, but during the last fight, Shady's popped down the Lamb's Respite just a second too late, after Jadimi had already died, which was just unfortunate. If it had happened half a second earlier, Jadimi would have survived a little bit longer, been useful in the team fight. As it stands though, SG is deciding that they want to fight up against Coco. Don't know if they win this one.
Going for the tower dive on it, really taking it. That's the exhaust, not having the move speed, but it will be the kill. Now tanking onto tower. Shades might be able to get it, but Mordekai's doing so much damage. Riftmaker complete, stolen stats from the Misfortune. Gonna need Relative's help to get out of this one, I think.
Yeah, Relative is definitely going to be needed. Coco is still going to die to the tower here. It depends on who wants the kill. It looks like Relative wants it. Is going to pick it up. That's a nice injection of gold onto the strongest member of AIX. Right now, this Azir is getting pretty strong. Will need a lot longer to scale up. Definitely needs that first item. And then past that point, then is going to be a lot stronger. Jadimi might get dove here. Needs to be so careful. 4 members of BME around.
And the big weakness of Nami is your
Don't
health.
do it.
Oh no, she
Don't
doesn't
do it.
know. Wait, no, they're too late. They just don't want to go for it. They don't know what the other members of ARX are. Playing it safe.
That could have been so very bad. Luckily, Jadimi pops that ultimate. No!
That force was so well timed by Shruki, dodging out of that Emperor's Divide.
That was lovely out of Shruki. The timing on that, a millisecond to react, does so perfectly. Fantastic right there. Coco in this bush.
Death Realm not available, but a lot of damage is Coco looking to get the kill onto Shades, but it's a 3 versus 1,
Ooh.
and that means you're losing out in that confrontation.
Oh, nearly though, despite being a 3 versus 1, Coco nearly picking up that kill still though. Shades manages to get it, is now looking to steal away some chickens as well. At this point, Shades is being more of a nuisance than anything else throughout all of these fights, but things are beginning to, you know, it's still quite a big lead right now for BME. They're ahead by about 3k. Need to be careful if you're AIX not to let things slip too far out of your grasp.
Alright, not a massive gold deficit, but the issue is how you're going to shut down this Lucian. In later fights, we've seen it. AIX have the patience. They had the patience to wait on that bot play. Now, SJ really going to have to execute on this one to make sure he can lock down the Lucian, or even with Emperor's Divide from Relative, because if Shruki keeps playing like this, it's going to be real rough for AIX.
Yeah, you have got to be careful. Shruki is doing fantastic things and will be pretty safe with the support of a Brom. Will need to be bursted down in order to actually get that kill. And so, the trade is going to be Sora versus Relative. The damage Relative does.
Relative has the ultimate, but Sora has the ability to double the store away, so he should be safe for now. Shades will pick up that second Herald and go over the wall, currently marking onto Shruki. AX realizing that they really need to shut down this carry.
SJ going way too far forwards.
Hunty gonna get the lockdown, that's gonna be SG dead immediately. Stormbringer onto Shades, can they get the kill? The chase down is there, flash away, tidal wave. Now Shades looking for it onto Hunty, doing so much damage as his Kindred right now with the farm advantage, but the stun comes through. Jadimi picks that one up on the back of it, but you just reset your own gold value, so I'm not sure how much worth that actually is. Relative now coming through for the rest of it. If Relative can get a kill out of this, or even SJ, it might not be too bad. It looks like the Malphite. Oh no, the Azir will pick it up, even better.
Yeah, that's exactly who you want that gold to go down onto. That's now a 3-0-0 Relative in the mid lane. You can see the power of everybody. Unfortunately, Shades went diving in when really they should have been running away. All in all, that fight going more in the favor of AIX simply because it was even. If this tower goes down, it will be positive for AIX, but even if it's an even trade, when you're behind, even trades are good. When you're ahead, you want to constantly be putting yourself further and further ahead because you should be. You have more gold, you have more items, you should be winning.
Precisely that. Still lead for Coco. This Drake, only ocean spawning. Not Hextech even because of the bug, so it will still be the Hextech Soul coming through Sora, getting some damage onto SG. If they can get this pick, they might win the fight. Hunty gets the kill, but the Empress Divide onto 2. That might be what they needed. Shruki so low. Unstoppable for the shutdown over to the Azir.
Coco now continuing to chase forwards. Needs to be careful, stepping very far forwards.
Death Realm onto SJ, now AX. Relative looking for Hunty. The damage from this Azir is so immense right now, and BME just forced to retreat.
Having to run away, watching the game slip between their fingers despite a fantastic early game. They're still in it, they can still do well for themselves, but as Relative puts down a tower, all of a sudden they're pushed further and further back. The Drake has gone over to AIX as well, and we are 2 minutes away from the Baron. Need to get themselves back into control of this game. Still have a gold lead, but at this point Relative does so much damage.
And that's exactly the problem. AX have been so patient to wait on these CC tools, to wait on these lockdown tools to ensure that Shruki dies. They got both of them onto the Lucian this time, and that pretty much meant that they won the fight.
You have so much dive potential. Lucian is a pretty safe champion with the Gale Force as well as the ability to dash away. It's a fantastic champion when you are against a lot of engage, but when there's as much hard engage and hard damage as is coming through from AIX, it's so very difficult to run away constantly. If you dodge away from Shadies, all of a sudden you've got SJ coming flying in with the unstoppable force and knocking you up. It's a very difficult game to play for Shruki, but if Shruki is able to position perfectly, they will find these fights because Shruki does a ton of damage too at this point in time.
Yeah, 2 items, Essence Reaver complete, still waiting on the 3rd right now. Shruki now, the rest of the team, they are going to be collapsed on though. They have the pincer formation, Tidal Wave is going to go wide, but now Hunty in the middle of free, Stormbringer out. Is that enough? There's the Unstoppable Force after Hunty removes the Unstoppable. Kiko now forced back after the exhaust. 1 kill over to AX. Can they go for more?
Very close right now, Relative. Continuing to step forward, continuing to do damage. Shadies is also on the flank, as is SG. Need to be careful, all the BME members are in danger.
Really want it, Coco really needs something. 1 HP dies, eventually Kiko gonna die to the rest of the bullet time. Shruki trying to get SG down, but there's the Lamb's Respite this time, timed it correctly, and it's gonna save the life of his ADC.
A lovely little play right there. Sora and Shruki, the only members remaining. But at this point, a push through the bottom lane is entirely plausible. Can pick themselves up this tower. Baron has now spawned. And at this point in time, 20 minutes into the game, this is even gold. BME had such a lead during the early game. But through fantastic play out of Relative, things have begun to swung in AIX's favour.
This is why Relative is the star player of this team. We saw those turning team fights, the amount of damage Azir is pumping out, even at the 20-minute mark, just from leads gained on his own. So hard for Shruki to play the game into this right now, and we'll see if BME can try and protect this Lucian, because it's exactly what they need to do.
What needs to happen is picks, because unfortunately, Sora is super far ahead, but during big team fights...
I have the feeling that was a misclick, because I don't think as a Nami you want to be tunneling through the enemy jungle right there.
Well, moving on, picks might be a good idea for BME. That also was a good idea. Unfortunately, Coco...
Picks are pretty good for AIX too.
Yes, indeed. Coco gonna go down very quickly. Kiko now taking a bit of damage too. The push now through the top lane. You can see the map rotation out of AIX is very impressive. Constantly moving between the lanes where they have wave pressure, trying to get down these turrets. Baron is up and available, and the top laner for BME is dead.
Okay, Baron on the cards, but you don't necessarily have the means to do it just yet. Kiko dashing back. Oh! Well, we didn't see how that happened, but Shruki died to Shadies, and that means that they definitely have the opportunity to start this one up. Kiko far too low to try and contest. It's all on Sora. Now SG gets obliterated. What was that?
That was insane amounts of damage out of a Blanc. Exactly what we needed. That's a good pick. Still though, 4 members onto the Baron, dropping low.
2000 just too far away. I don't think you want to make the turn either 4 versus 3-1 without the resources to do so. Coco now looking for it. I mean, the rest of your team is so low. I feel like this might be an overextension, but they're going to go for it. Stormbringer over, Relative now getting low, dies. Now 2 dead for BME. Can they get anything more out of it? Coco doing so much damage. Conqueror keeping him alive. Full bar on the Mordekaiser. Shady's just gonna pick it up instead though, and AIX ends up winning out on the fight. Sora gonna go down as well. 9-1 and 5 for the Kindred.
A beautiful little play right there out of Shadies. We said that the main carry was going to be Relative, but in this game, Shadies has stepped up on the signature pick right here. Gonna go down as well towards this Hextech Soul. Putting themselves on Soul Point 2, picking up what would be a 3 Hextech Drake, Hextech Soul. Would be insane extra amounts of damage and more slows, allowing them to run through the enemy composition better. This Kindred being piloted so very well by Shadies, other than one slight misclick during the early portion of the game, is being piloted so beautifully.
Now the game's sort of blown wide open. You have Baron buff on many members of your team. You can keep sieging down. The gold advantage is now in your coffers for once. AIX with the advantage despite the early deficit. Goes to show the power of this team, why they were so feared in their own group.
It's to be careful. BME had such a nice early game. Everything was in their favor. It was lovely. Unfortunately, all of a sudden, the scaling out of Relative and Shadys came forwards. What was expected was an early lead for BME because when you look at the junglers, Volibear wants to gank early, and actually the Kindred would much rather just sit back and keep farming. But the lead that was produced was enough that it could have continued to be snowballed. Unfortunately, a couple bad fights for BME and they are put behind.
That's 2 autos!
2 autos. On a tank, by the way.
I mean, you're 5 levels up. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of damage, and now the siege continues in the top lane, while there are multiple members of BME down in the bottom lane. Everything coming up AIX right now. They are looking to punch their ticket into the top 8.
Right now, BME's goal was to take down this Kindred, because if you don't do that, there's just too much of a damage threat. Sora gonna get obliterated living on 1 health.
Oh boy, you can see just the insane amounts of damage. SG also laying it down. Unfortunately, no minion wave, but still, there is going to be one Baroned up cannon minion just going to keep chipping away. Should finally take down this turret. And this means that this Baron buff play has been incredibly impactful. Towers falling left, right, and center. Pressure all across the map. And ARX are looking to close out this game at around 25 minutes. Pretty fast.
Norman and Fashion BME needs to put up a fight now. All of the tools to force RFAX going in, but he dies immediately. Does respite? That might be what BME needed. Onto SJ, next target. No deaths just yet. Sora still looking for AX. Really need to retreat right now, but the shutdown alone is so huge for BME.
That's a huge shutdown, but luckily the turret out of Relative stops the chase in its tracks. They all need to avoid getting any further forward. Sora going in. Decides against it, probably a wise decision over aggression out of Shadys. Jumping forwards, didn't even pop the Lamb's Respite, died that quickly.
Yeah, just didn't expect to get popped. You know, oh, I'm level 15, I'm really ahead right now, I can make the play, I'll probably kill them faster than they can kill me. It's the overconfidence there. AX gonna have to pay for it. The donation, BME stays alive.
Well, the minute the game will continue on, we've got another Drake spawning in 2 minutes. This Drake will be Soul Point. Hextech Drake, not an Ocean Drake. Unfortunately, that is a spectator bug. Once it pops up, it will then be the Soul Point. Possibly Hunty caught out here very far forwards.
Make it rain, providing the slows. I think you might have to provide the terms. I'm not sure you get out of this one. There's too much move speed. Maybe you can. Unstoppable Force not up yet, but if you land a Seismic Shard onto something, you have the chase. Flash away from the Make It Rain, and Hunty manages to get out, but at what cost?
Yeah, losing the flash means that it's going to be a lot harder to get in and involved on any Drake steals, which is especially impactful when that Soul Point is up and available. Shadys.
Alright, popping the Lamb's Respite on his own. Relative comes through, blows up Shruki, pushes him out of the circle. Now the collapse to pincer from AIX. Shadys does go down, but what is going to happen to the rest of BME? Relative comes through the damage from the soldiers. Coco still alive, able to kill Relative, but goes down as Repentance. AIX winning the team fight once again.
A lovely little fight right there. It looked so good. They'd caught Shadys out, had to pop the Lamb's Respite, but Relative comes flying in over the wall. The slide in, Emperor's Divide, a beautiful play, and now AIX are pushing. They may well go for the win here.
I'm not sure if you can, and it might be safer to just get the in-heaven leave, given the respawn timers and the presence of Hunty. Based on the decision, I think you just leave off of this one. If they want more, they can go for it.
Deciding to actually walk away, the correct decision, it would have to be said. Hunty just chasing SJ out of the base. The Drake is spawning in 18 seconds, the Baron in 24. Teleport in.
Coco really wants it. I mean, this is the right time. They're not all there. There's the Blast Cone. Opportunity revoked, but now rest of BME should be able to get set up around this Drake because it's only 3 to 5 right now.
Relative is on the way, and Relative has now joined. This is now a 5v5.
Alright, Coco going to be the brunt of the first target. Stormbringer forward. Shady's getting incredibly low. There is no Lamb's Respite, but Relative is just doing too much damage. A triple kill for the Azir as the Malphite is going to pick up the rest onto Sora. Relative make it a quadra, and that's the game for AIX.
A beautiful game out of AIX. It looked a bit shaky in the early portions. They were just scaling up, biding their time and waiting to come forward. Relative roams through with that big quadra kill, but it's been Shady's game the whole way through. A beautiful win, and AIX will round out our top 8 of this tournament.
PG Lions, I hope you're watching this. AIX are here to show this tournament. Commiserations to BME for certain, but that was a dominating performance after a very slow early game.
Just a beautiful fight right there to end things off, and it got to the point where they could not deal with that Kindred.
Just got too far ahead. I mean, it was so obscene seeing the 2 autos onto the level 10 Braum. Like, a 5 level gap between 2 players is actually unfathomable in a lot of games.
Yeah, that is more than you would ever expect, and especially because it went so very well for Hungary. It was expected to be good on that end, and in the end, it's just not enough. 3k gold lead at around 15 minutes, it looked good, and then 1 or 2 fights goes badly, and it all falls to pieces.
Yeah, some replays to go over that BME success in the early game really showcased. I mean, we're going to have this immediate early fight, level 2 to level 3. I mean, Jadimi just far too low, and it's just the power of the Lucian to do the damage here. It's traded, but certainly advantageous for BME.
Yeah, it was a good little fight right there out of BME. We're going to see more of those with Jadimi being caught out. We'll talk to Jadimi in a couple of minutes as well. And unfortunately, the Nami getting just blown up here. Never was going to survive Jadimi caught out in this situation as well. You could see the early game was genuinely good, but then a little bit of over-aggression trying to get in a little bit too far resulted in plays where all of a sudden Shady's was in a good spot. This could have been good for Coco, but goes too far forwards in what ends up being a 3 versus 1 and ends up going down.
I mean, you saw it. BME were 4,000 ahead by that point before that play happened, and now they're still relatively far ahead on this play, even Hunty trading another kill, but it's just every team fight after another. AIX with the patience. This one was such a massive swing for them with the amount of map advantage they were able to get in the end.
Yeah, Shruki just about not able to take down SG because of that Lamb's Respite. This one, this happened. Unfortunately, this was a play that did definitely happen. We didn't talk about it too much during the game, and we won't talk about it too much now. Other than some interesting plays, there was definitely a lot of good team fighting. This was the big swing factor, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That BME went for the overextension. They think, you know what, we can pick up some kills after this Baron goes down, trying and get our advantage back. But unfortunately, it was a bit of an overforce and just too much gold donated over to AIX after the fight ended.
Shady's had enough confidence to go forwards here. This is the big fight for the soul. Jadimi throws through that Nami wave, which goes wide, but actually pushes everybody up and forwards into the members and basically into the saw blade buzzsaw that was Relative. A quadra kill comes up for Relative, and that was the end. That was all she wrote.
Pretty much a very well played game by the end, just showing that, you know what, even if you get us in a deficit, you really got to push for it, because we're not going to go down without a fight, and that's exactly what AX showed.
Yeah, unfortunate for BME, but we are going to talk to the winners of AIX who are out of Germany. A fantastic game out of them, and we've got Jadimi from the bot lane to say hi. Hello.
Hi guys.
How are you feeling after that victory, eh?
Pretty relieved. I just came to Aachen this day and had some trouble with the Deutsche Bahn, so
Yes, unsurprising with that one. Congratulations on your victory overall. Did it feel like a good fight, or do you think you could have had some things to improve on?
I think the first game was really clean. Everyone just won their lane and it was pretty easy to pick up, just play and then don't choke, and we won. And the second game, our bot lane synergy was not there. I got maybe a little too overexcited and went into some situations I didn't want to be in, but yeah, still Shades was on his top game, on his champion, and yeah, we won.
Yeah, managed to come through and certainly showing the strength as a team. Any sort of, I don't know, expectations coming into the next round of playoffs?
I mean, I think our group was pretty hard, or the hardest group from all.
Group of death,
Yeah.
most certainly.
Yeah, with AGH and Twente, and I think we could have also gotten the first place. So we're definitely thinking that we are going to play against Kit.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
and I think that's our goal at least. And then a German final is not a half final, so we'd see that. I think
Would be an exceptionally interesting matchup. Yeah, as you said, your Group D was absolute bloodbath. You now have got, of the top 8, 3 teams out of that group have popped up already, with AIX, you guys, as well as AGH, and then, as you said, Esports Team 20, who were kind of insane in your group once they had their actual bot laner in. Overall, do you think playing in a really tough group helped you out, or do you think it was a bit of a hindrance?
I mean, we also played with our sub ADC the whole games because our other ADC already booked his vacations. So I think we're stronger now, and now with some more games on our line, after a short break, we're going to really show our best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been playing on patch 12.9. Are there sort of like any sort of, I don't know, changes in the meta since the 12.5 patch that you played in groups, or anything you'd like to, like, I don't know, I guess speak about on that front?
Yeah, I mean, the meta on botlane shifted quite a bit because we don't play those hyper carries like Jinx or Aphelios anymore. More like this ability focused ADCs. And I just think Nautilus is so fucking so broken. And it's pretty disgusting how it is.
Yeah, we're seeing it banned out against you guys quite a lot. Are you expecting people to be, allowing Relative to get onto that Azir again? Are you expecting people to allow Shades to get onto that Kindred again? I'm not so sure.
I mean, they also banned champions which we played before, so Diana, Yasuo, and so on. I think we have our jungle mid lane is probably the best in the tournament, as far as I know. Relative and Shades are really good players, and they communicate very well. So I think you can't really ban them out.
Right.
So I'm very confident.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah, certainly show the flexibility in draft. I mean, I don't think there's too much else from me, but I guess any sort of shout outs or anything you'd like to say to the people out there watching?
Yeah, of course, shout out to our coach Glupanda, who helped us to draft, and also some macro issues from the Uniliga in Germany for the finals. And then also shout out to the fans from the Discord who watch our games. It's pretty nice.
Well, congratulations on the win. Enjoy being in top 8, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys up against PG Lions in the next round.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the cast. It's always a pleasure watching it.
Alright,
And
thank
have
you
a
very
great
much.
day.
And you,
Yes,
pleasure for
and
us.
Alrighty, well, a big congratulations to AIX. They did fantastically. The German representatives moving on. They're looking to get that Germany versus Germany semi-finals, which is entirely possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, commiserations to BME. They did not the best, but I think they tried their absolute hardest. If we take a look at the brackets one more time, today we are going to say ourselves a goodbye to BME. They played their absolute best, tried their hardest, as well as UDLAG. Yesterday we said goodbye to Braves and to KTU. The people who are moving on from this preliminary round is going to be AIX Shure versus PG Lions in one of the quarterfinals, ATS AGH versus Kit SC White. That's a big matchup to watch. Then Yeno Misler, the absolute mad lads that we saw yesterday who came through playing a chaos style, versus Bobcats UOL. Yeno Misler are looking to take out both of the Spanish representatives, and then UDL Esports Sigma versus Esports Team 20 to round things off. It's going to be an insane quarterfinal set of matches.
Yeah, certainly a lot of highlight matches. I wouldn't necessarily say any of them are any worse than the other. Of course, some more highlight ones than others. And the German Polish side of the bracket now, it will be either I guess I could be German, could be Polish, could be German Polish. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
This is the way that rivalries are born. It's an absolutely insane side of the bracket over there. The other side a little bit more diverse, although we could well have a Spain killer Yenomizla team if they manage to get themselves a win again versus Bobcats. But overall, just some fantastic games that we've seen across the course of the last 2 days. A fantastic time. I've had a brilliant time. How have you found it?
Absolutely has been 2 banger games today. Definitely the last few series, BME having put up a massive fight. The level in playoffs has definitely increased, and it will certainly continue to do so. Anything else to say before we sort of sign off?
I am just so excited for this next round of playoffs. I'm particularly excited, I'm going to say it one more time, for Yenomizla. They were insane, but overall, I'm so excited to just see all of these teams play. It's going to be a hype time.
Absolutely. Big thank yous to everyone behind the scenes, as well as, of course, our sponsors, Twitch Student and Intel, for being able to provide this stream to all of you out there. Stay safe, healthy, and well, and we'll see you next week.